Chapter 2637. What does he want to do? Variantha Marks stared at Arthur Alberta Haber and asked. Arthur Alberta Haber was silent for a while, then said, "There is a Dragon Ball below. His goal is that Dragon Ball." Oh. Zephyr frowned and said, "For the dragon race, one Dragon Ball is enough. Even if they eat the Dragon Ball of other dragons, there will not be any improvement. This doesn't make sense." "Of course it's not an ordinary Dragon Ball," Arthur Alberta Haber said calmly. "That thing shouldn't exist in this world." "What do you mean? It's not an ordinary Dragon Ball? What kind of Dragon Ball is that?" "That's the Dragon Ball of the ancient dragon race. It is said that as long as you can get the recognition of the Dragon Ball, you will have the same power as the ancient dragon race." "Is there any difference between the ancient dragon race and the current dragon race?" "I don't know." Arthur Alberta Haber shrugged. "Logically speaking, there should be no gap between the two. Just like you humans call the people hundreds of years ago ancient, the same is true for us dragons. It's just that our time span is longer and longer. There is no difference in essence." "Is there no difference between the ancient dragon race and the current dragon race?" "No, we dragons have enough time to learn the magic knowledge of our elders, so there is no gap in inheritance. What the ancient dragon race knows, our current generation of dragons also knows. Even with the development of the times, I believe that the ancient dragon race may not know more than us." "But you also said that the Dragon Ball is the Dragon Ball of the ancient dragon race. Your words have already explained that the Dragon Ball is different." "What I know comes from my father's generation. Of course I know what my father told me. How would I know what my father didn't tell me? I wasn't born knowing." "Then why did the Dragon Ball appear here?" Zephyr asked. "My grandfather's grandfather was placed here." "Your grandfather's grandfather?" Arthur Alberta Haber shrugged. "Speaking of which, I don't know if the Dragon Ball can really allow the recognized dragon to obtain the power of the ancient dragon race, but I can be sure that if Haber Timur Haber obtains the ancient Dragon Ball, then there will definitely be big trouble. The spiritualist here should have been deliberately leaked by Haber Timur Haber, right?" "That's right." "What is his purpose in doing this? Isn't it better to secretly get the ancient Dragon Ball? If he can get it, then it won't be so troublesome. If he could get it, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. That ancient Dragon Ball's draconic might far exceeds that of an ordinary dragon. Even a dragon like him would find it difficult to resist this draconic might, so he needs a human to bear the pressure brought by the draconic might. There is a limit to how much draconic might one can endure. If the draconic might's pressure is 100, then a person approaching the range of the draconic might will completely bear the pressure of 100. But if it's 100 people, then these 100 people can share the pressure of 100. Although I don't know what the limit of the draconic might of the ancient Dragon Ball is, if it's divided into 1,000th, then even Haber Timur Haber can easily bear it. So what news did Haber Timur Haber spread to attract so many spiritualists? It's a very stupid lie, but it's very effective. He said that the ancient dragon clan's treasures are hidden here, and he even gave out many self-made treasure maps. Those stupid humans actually believed it to be true, and even treated it as a secret, keeping it a secret. Arthur Alberta Haber snorted and shook his head. "If it were me, I would make this lie more perfect instead of only deceiving idiots." However, at this moment, no one was in the mood to argue with Arthur Alberta Haber. Even Varian Marks only wanted to get to the lowest floor as soon as possible at this moment, to prevent Haber Timur Haber from obtaining the ancient Dragon Ball. So even if Arthur Alberta Haber and his men were by his side, he would not be able to do anything. Varian Marks didn't have any more objections, although she didn't have a good impression of Arthur Alberta Haber. But the threat of Haber Timur Haber was obviously greater. Moreover, in order to stop Haber Timur Haber, he had to use Arthur Alberta Haber's power at this moment. So this time she didn't refuse Arthur Alberta Haber's company along the way. But along the way she was still cold to Arthur Alberta Haber. It was not a peaceful journey either. From time to time a team would pop up and cause trouble for them. Arthur Alberta Haber basically only needed to send 2 vicious dogs to kill those people until they pissed their pants. If they encountered a slightly stronger spiritualist team, they would exclude their subordinates. Like the Dragon Slayer squad, they were all mixed blood dragons. But they called themselves half-dragons. Although they had the same bloodline, their fighting style was completely different from the Dragon Slayer squad. Most of the Dragon Slayers were used to relying on equipment. On the other hand, half-dragons were used to using their own bloodline. They transformed into half-dragons without any scruples, and even directly transformed into small dragons. Coupled with their large weapons, the combat power they displayed was quite amazing. although the Dragon Slayer squad kept saying that they disdained these half-dragons. But when they saw their combat power, their eyes still showed splendor. Dragon Slayers could also transform into half-dragons, but most of the characteristics of dragon transformation were very few. The more dragon characteristics, the stronger their combat power was, and vice versa, the weaker they were. On the one hand, their dragon transformation needed to be bathed in dragon blood. As Arthur Alberta Haber's subordinates, they definitely did not lack dragon blood. And the dragon blood that the Dragon Slayers needed to be done by themselves, which was definitely not as abundant as half-dragons. Moreover, half-dragons accepted their own bloodline, and they recognized their identity as dragon descendants. And the Dragon Slayers rejected and resisted their own bloodline. So the difference in their strength was obvious. Half-dragons and Dragon Slayers were like old enemies. Both sides provoked each other with their eyes after the battle. Fortunately, under Arthur Alberta Haber's suppression, the two sides did not directly clash. This maze was really big, and even with Jane Fankel leading the way, they would still go wrong. Although Jane Fankel's memory was amazing, it was a long time ago. Even she remembered a few things incorrectly. So everyone walked for nearly 5 hours. After going around a long flight of stairs, everyone's eyes suddenly opened up. A huge underground space appeared in front of everyone. The ground, walls, and ceiling of this space were all made of square stones. The whole space was also square with the same length, width, and height. It was estimated that each right angle was 10,000 meters. This was definitely not a project that could be completed by humans. As Arthur Alberta Haber said, this place was built by his grandfather's grandfather. Chapter 2638. In the underground space that was like the sky. Every piece of stone inlaid in the ground was flat, not like ancient craftsmanship. At this moment, there were already hundreds of spiritualists in this cube space. But at this moment they were fighting fiercely with the magic puppets. These magic puppets all drilled out of the magic formation, and their numbers were endless. Moreover, their numbers were endless. There were probably close to 10,000 magic puppets at the scene alone. These magic puppets were of different shapes and sizes. Some were like giant spiders and some looked like ordinary people. However, their individual strength was relatively not strong, and they won in quantity. The difference in their strength could be seen from the size of their heads. The more they were, the stronger they were. There were very few big ones, and most of them were ordinary soldiers. At this moment, these magic puppets were fighting with the spiritualists. It was the first time Al and Jane Fankel had seen such a big scene. There. Jane Fankel saw the stone statue in the middle of the field. The stone statue was very conspicuous, because there was no one around it with a diameter of about 500 meters. The stone statue held a white pearl in its palm. That was obviously the ancient dragon pearl. Everyone immediately headed in the direction of the ancient dragon pearl. Stop right there. Arthur Alberta Haber called out to everyone. The Dragon Slayer team immediately revealed vigilant and hostile eyes, staring at Arthur Alberta Haber. What are you doing? Varian Marks questioned. Didn't you notice? There's no one around there, only a few people lying on the ground at the edge, Arthur Alberta Haber said calmly. Varian furrowed her brows. At this moment, a few figures appeared in the other direction of the cube. Although it was far away, Arthur Alberta Haber could still see clearly that the leader of the few figures was Haber Timor Haber. Haber Timor Haber met Arthur Alberta Haber's gaze. Arthur Alberta Haber narrowed his eyes and looked at Haber Timor Haber. Haber Timor Haber waved his hand, and his men immediately dispersed. What are they fighting for? Varian said. That's. Jane Fankel saw her father and brother. They were picking up a silver awl from the corpse of a spiritualist. His elder brother had just killed a spiritualist and snatched a green bracelet from his hand. Arthur Alberta Haber's eyes narrowed slightly. Ascending Dragon Devil Immortal Treasure. What is it? It was created by the ancient humans to fight against the Dragon Clan. Arthur Alberta Haber said, many of these people carry these things or Haber summoned them for these things. Stop him. Once he obtains enough Ascending Dragon magic tools, it is very likely that he will be able to enter the ancient Dragon Ball's draconic might unimpeded. Varian thought for a moment and exchanged glances with Zephyra. They also knew that Haber Timor Haber was their main target. Anything that could stop Haber Timor Haber's goal was acceptable. The two Dragon Slayer teams had never worked together before. But their actions were like close comrades in arms. A Dragon Slayer held a cannon and fired a shot at a demi-dragon under Haber Timor Haber's command. But what came out of the cannon was not a cannonball but a net. The tall demi-dragon immediately wanted to tear off the net on his body. But this net was tougher than he had imagined. It couldn't be torn for a while. Immediately afterward, a few other dragon slayers held automatic rifles in their hands and fired at the draconians. But at this moment, another demi-dragon rushed toward the dragon slayer. Suddenly, a tall figure blocked in front of the dragon slayer team. The one who attacked was a demi-dragon under Arthur Alberta Haber's command. Varian remembered that this demi-dragon was called Randolph. It was a demi-dragon against a demi-dragon, but Randolph's strength was obviously stronger than his opponent by more than one level. With a move, the big sword swept again, and the demi-dragon was directly swept away. But Randolph didn't notice that a figure quietly approached him from the chaotic battlefield. Taking advantage of Randolph's fight with the enemy, the figure suddenly flew directly to Randolph's back at an extremely fast speed. Although it was not big, it was extremely fierce. Its claws firmly grasped Randolph's back. At the same time, black flames ignited on its palms. The black flames followed the figure's claws and penetrated into the skin on Randolph's back that was scratched. Ouch! Randolph screamed in pain. Bang bang, Zevra was quick to react. She fired a few shots at the figure behind Randolph. The figure was shot down. Big brother. Jane Fankel was shocked. She had already recognized that the figure who attacked Randolph was her big brother. Caesar Marks was 80% dragonized at the moment. Although he was not much bigger, he already had dragon horns, tail and wings. Zevra still wanted to pursue, but Jane Fankel opened her arms in front of Zevra. Zevra didn't care about Jane Fankel at all. She directly reached out and swept Jane Fankel's face away. She fired several shots at Caesar Marks on the ground. However, Caesar Marks went to the ground and dodged a few times. He easily avoided Zevra's attack and disappeared into the chaotic crowd in the blink of an eye. Zevra looked at Jane Fankel angrily and pointed the muzzle directly at her head. "If there's a next time, I will kill you first, then your deformed father and brother." Jane Fankel's face turned pale. She looked at Varian Marks for help. However, Varian's expression became even colder. "If there's a next time, I will kill you first without Zevra doing anything." "Hee hee, don't be so serious." Arthur Alberta Haber smiled and smoothed things over. "She's just an ordinary person to us, so it's understandable. The enemy doesn't care whether she's an ordinary person or not. On the battlefield, anyone who gets in the way will be classified as an enemy." Zevra's cold gaze made Jane Fankel shudder. "I think she's learned to be obedient after this." "Humph, it's your men who are injured. You're generous and not angry at all." Zevra glanced at Randolph. Randolph was barely standing. However, his back was already a mess of flesh and blood, and the black scorch marks burned his back beyond recognition. Chapter 2639. Arthur Alberta Haber glanced at Randolph. Then he pricked his finger and a drop of dragon blood seeped out of the wound. Arthur Alberta Haber flicked his finger lightly, and the dragon blood landed on Randolph's body. The terrible burn on Randolph's back gradually recovered. Randolph's pained expression also gradually eased. "My lord, I want to kill that guy." Randolph was straightforward. How could he stand such an insult? He was ambushed by the opponent and then he escaped. For him it was a great humiliation. In the chaotic battlefield between the spiritualists and the magic puppets, he could vaguely see Caesar Marks wandering around in it. He had been lying on the ground, crawling like a lizard. He was fast and agile and he was low. It was difficult for the spiritualists in the battle to notice his existence. He would ambush one or two people from time to time, and every time he succeeded. The more Randolph watched, the angrier he got. 1/3 of the thousands of spiritualists on the battlefield had died. The scene was a little out of control. First, it was the endless magic puppets. Second, it was the trouble caused by Hobart Timor Haber's men. Originally, the situation was a little difficult, but because of their disturbance, it had completely developed in the direction of defeat. Every ascending dragon magic implement that was snatched would be sent to Hobart Timor Haber. And those ascending dragon magic implements were in front of Hobart Timor Haber. Hobart Timor Haber didn't touch them. They were floating around an irregularly shaped thing in Hobart Timor Haber's hands. That irregularly shaped thing should also be a magic implement, but it didn't have any beauty. "Heart of Sodium," Arthur Alberta Haber said with a frown. "What is it?" Varian asked in confusion. "Artifact. It can be used as the core of all magic tools, and then combine several or dozens of completely unrelated magic tools together to form a brand new magic tool and improve it to a brand new quality." But Ascending Dragon Magic Implement isn't a magic tool, right? Ascending Dragon Magic Implement is a magic tool, but it's aimed at dragons. It's still lethal to others, but it can restrain dragons. At this time, even Arthur Alberta Haber could not sit still. He didn't care about the scattered ascending dragon magic tools. They were like a group of ants that posed almost zero threat to him. But if this group of ants were divided into a whole group, then he could no longer sit back and do nothing. Not long after, the Draconic Ascending Magic Tool was assembled. The Draconic Ritual Implement was like Hobart Timor Haber's extra prosthetic limb. It was attached to his back, but the limb was much larger than his body. It was like an ordinary human being had a giant's arm transplanted onto his body. These people are probably the descendants of the ancient Tyrok, Zephyr said. What's ancient Tillock? Arthur Alberta Haber asked, puzzled. He realized that there were still things in this world that he didn't know. Varian Marx glanced at Arthur Alberta Haber and said, the embryonic form of the Dragon Slayer was originally a coalition of human spiritualists, but it later fell apart because of interests. In other words, the Ascending Dragon Magic Tool was developed by them? It should be, but this technology should have been lost. Of course it's lost because the main material of the Ascending Dragon Magic Tool is the dragon race. Hobart Timor Haber's subordinates were using the bodies of the spiritualists to throw them into the domain of the ancient Dragon Balls. Then, the corpses of the spiritualists began to stand up one after another. However, their eyes had already lost their luster. But as soon as they stood up, their faces showed pain, and they fell down one after another. It was as if they were pressed to the ground by an invisible force. Human faces kept popping out from under their skin, but they quickly shrunk back into their bodies. What's going on? Hobart Timor Haber injected a large number of foreign souls into each corpse. Didn't he slaughter thousands of people before in order to collect the souls of these people? Each spiritualist body can be injected with at least a few to dozens of souls, which can share the draconic might of the ancient Dragon Balls to a greater extent. When the remaining spiritualists on the scene saw this scene, they all felt their scalps go numb. But at this time, even if they wanted to retreat, there was no way. Hobart Timor Haber was implementing his plan step by step, and it was successful. Hobart Timor Haber looked provocatively at Arthur Alberta Haber, and then walked into the range of the draconic might of the ancient Dragon Balls. However, his footsteps suddenly slowed down. The arm formed by the Ascending Dragon Magic Tool on his back suddenly burst out with a ripple, weakening the pressure of the draconic might a lot. Although Hobart Timor Haber still felt very uncomfortable, at least it was not as difficult to move as before. Arthur Alberta Haber could no longer calm down at this moment, and immediately rushed into the range of the draconic might. However, as soon as he entered the draconic might, he regretted it. Because the draconic might emitted by this ancient Dragon Ball was far more terrifying than he had imagined. All the power was completely suppressed. In this range, even a magic ball couldn't be thrown out. And his body felt like it was injected with thousands of tons of lead water. This made him have no choice but to directly transform into his real body, a 300-meter-long giant silver dragon. When Varian Marx and others saw the silver dragon that Arthur Alberta Haber had transformed into, their faces showed a trace of shock. The expressions of Al and Jane Fankel were completely lifeless. Dragon. A real dragon. That was the legendary dragon. Although they had been influenced by what they had seen and heard in the past few days, they also knew that they had dragon blood in them. But in the end, they had never seen a real dragon. At most, they could only look at the dragon form of a demi-dragon. However, the dragon form of a demi-dragon was simply two different concepts compared to the real dragon that Arthur Alberta Haber had transformed into. Arthur Alberta Haber had to use his draconic might to contend with the draconic might of the ancient Dragon Ball. However, his draconic might was still so insignificant in front of the draconic might emitted by the ancient Dragon Ball. Every step he took was full of difficulty, like a person trapped in a swamp. That kind of pain and helplessness made him unable to continue. And this was still under the condition that the draconic might of the ancient Dragon Ball had been shared. Chapter 2640. Arthur Alberta Haber had long expected that the dragon might of the ancient Dragon Ball would be very powerful. But he didn't expect it to be this powerful. It was exactly the same as his father's dragon might. It was suffocating and oppressive. It was hard to imagine how powerful the owner of this ancient Dragon Ball was when he was alive. Even if he transformed into a dragon form, he could only barely resist the dragon might. Taking a step forward was so difficult. But Hobart Timor Haber was more relaxed than him. At least relatively speaking, Hobart Timor Haber's speed was much faster than Arthur Alberta Haber's. However, the closer he got, the stronger the oppressive feeling brought by the dragon might. Even Hobart Timor Haber found it difficult to walk too fast. Although the prosthetic arm formed by the Ascending Dragon magic tool behind him shared most of the dragon might, the Ascending Dragon magic tool was not immune. However, the Ascending Dragon magic instrument was not immune. It could only weaken a portion of the dragon's might. Time passed minute by minute. Arthur Alberta Haber was also doing his best to get close to the ancient Dragon Ball. But he still couldn't keep up with Haber Timur Haber's progress. Haber Timur Haber approached from another direction. He was more than twice as fast as Arthur Alberta Haber. About 30 minutes later, both Arthur Alberta Haber and Haber Timur Haber felt that they could no longer move forward. However, at this time, Haber Timur Haber was less than 100 meters away from the ancient Dragon Ball. At this time, Haber Timur Haber finally revealed his true body. He turned into a gray dragon, and the Ascending Dragon magic tool on his body turned into a metal dragon head, side by side with his original head. In an instant, he was only 30 meters away from the ancient Dragon Ball. Arthur Alberta Haber's expression changed dramatically and he immediately moved forward with all his strength. However, he had only advanced a few meters. The distance to the ancient Dragon Ball was still far away. Haber Timur Haber's metal dragon head stretched out its neck. The metal dragon head was originally transformed from the Ascending Dragon magic tool, and it had an extremely strong resistance to the dragon might. So at this moment, it was extending towards the ancient Dragon Ball unimpeded. Finally, the metal dragon head bit the ancient Dragon Ball and retracted. Haber Timur Haber's head had received the ancient Dragon Ball. At the moment of contact, countless knowledge, memories and terrifying power poured into Haber Timur Haber's body. Haber Timur Haber understood a lot of things and understood a lot of things. He now knew why dragons appeared in this world. He also knew many secrets that even the Dragon King did not know. He also learned about the dragon language magic that the Dragon clan did not inherit. The former owner of this ancient Dragon Ball was called Arilak Haber, a dragon that was even more powerful than the current Dragon King. He was once a great lord who dominated a region. Later on, he also became a member of the resistance against the progenitor dragon army. However, the resistance failed. Many of his clansmen were slaughtered. He was also one of them. However, he was luckier than his companions. He had his own children and his own inheritance. He didn't come to the human world, but his children brought his inheritance Dragon Pearl to this world. This was the only inheritance Dragon Pearl of the Haber Dragon clan that was left before the progenitor dragon launched the bloodline prohibition. But unfortunately, his descendants did not become the leaders of the Dragon clan after coming to the human world. At that time, the Dragon clan that was exiled to the human world also had their own factions. One of the branches became the leader of the exiled. Furthermore, he became the Dragon King without borrowing the ancient Dragon Ball. The Dragon King, the common ancestor of Haber Timur Haber and Arthur Alberta Haber, directly hid this ancient Dragon Ball. On the one hand, he didn't want a second Dragon King to appear, causing internal strife in the Dragon clan, and also to avoid other Dragon clans fighting for power with him. But he didn't want to completely destroy this ancient Dragon Ball. When his descendants couldn't become the Dragon King, or when there was a great crisis in the Dragon clan. In that case, this ancient Dragon Pearl would play a crucial role. And this secret was only known by the Dragon Kings of the past. But now this ancient Dragon Ball didn't play a key role. Haber Timur Haber became the beneficiary of the ancient Dragon Ball. The oppressive feeling on Arthur Alberta Haber's body suddenly disappeared. He didn't have any joy, but his face changed dramatically. Arthur Alberta Haber immediately turned around. Go. Leave here. Haber Timur Haber felt that the ancient Dragon Ball was constantly releasing a terrifying power. And this power was becoming a part of him. It was merging into his Dragon Ball. Haber Timur Haber's originally gray dragon scales were now gradually covered with red lines. His body grew larger and his aura became even more terrifying. Haber Timur Haber glanced at Arthur Alberta Haber, and a sneer appeared on his face. My dear brother, do you want to escape? Arthur Alberta Haber was terrified. From Haber Timur Haber's body, a brand new dragon aura had begun to spread. It was exactly the same dragon aura as the ancient Dragon Ball, but it was more autonomous than the ancient Dragon Ball. Father has always regarded you as the heir, and now it has been proven that I am the most suitable heir. Haber Timur Haber said proudly, but now I don't need to prove anything to him. The next time I return to Dragon Island, I will seize his royal power with my own hands. What Haber Timur Haber obtained was not only power, but also the dragon language magic that his father had never mastered. Dragon language magic did not completely disappear, but the dragon language magic that the current dragons mastered was far less powerful than the ancient Dragon Ball. It was because the exiled dragons had lost a large part of it. Haber Timur Haber was confident that he could defeat his father, the Dragon King, whom he once had to look up to. Everyone here must die. Haber Timur Haber shouted. In an instant, a terrifying dragon aura burst out. This dragon aura was like a substance, and everyone present vomited blood in an instant. The ground was directly trampled by the dragon aura. This was the Dragon King's dragon aura, which was completely different from ordinary dragons. He only needed to rely on the dragon aura to directly cause damage. Arthur Alberta Haber turned pale with fright, and his wings quickly caught Varian marks in the others. However, there were still a few people who were not protected by him and fell from the collapsed ground. Under the huge cubic space, it was not solid but suspended in the air. Everyone was falling down. At the same time, huge rocks were falling from above. Everything was developing in an extremely bad direction. Chapter 2641. Arthur Alberta Haber finally saved 7 or 8 people. In fact, he only wanted to save Varian marks, and the others were just saved in passing. Below was a huge karst cave and the space was larger than the cube above. Thousands of meters below there was a huge magma lake. Arthur Alberta Haber threw the people he saved on his back, and found a rock floating on the magma lake to stop. At this moment, the terrifying grayish-red figure was descending from above unhurriedly. Arthur Alberta Haber showed fear at this moment. Varian Marks looked at the huge body that protected her under her body with some confusion. She had never been protected by a dragon. In the past she would only kill a dragon. And the giant dragons she encountered would only kill her. No dragon would protect her voluntarily. However, at the moment when she fell, she clearly felt that Arthur Alberta Haber was looking at her. Jane Fankel was also one of the people who were saved. At this moment she was still in shock. At that moment she almost thought she was going to die. She saw with her own eyes that many people fell into the magma lake from above. They didn't even have the chance to scream. At this moment, Refra suddenly found that the interference of the phone had disappeared. The collapse above seemed to have destroyed the source of interference. Haber Timur Haber unscrupulously released a terrible dragon's power. Arthur Alberta Haber trembled under Haber Timur Haber's dragon's power. It was too powerful. Haber Timur Haber didn't even need to make a move directly. Even just relying on the dragon's power could kill him. Is this still the pride of being regarded as a genius by father? Haber Timur Haber looked at Arthur Alberta Haber mockingly. The current you is just like an ant in front of me. As long as I think about it, you will be crushed by me. From now on, I will destroy and tear all your pride and confidence little by little. Arthur Alberta Haber lowered his body, but he still tried to raise his head. He opened his mouth and let out 2 dragon roars. Haber Timur Haber transformed into human form. Under absolute power, even if he was only in human form, he was still countless times stronger than Arthur Alberta Haber. Let me show you my new magic. Haber Timur Haber raised his right arm. Just then, lava tentacles suddenly stretched out from the lava lake around them. The lava tentacles wrapped around Arthur Alberta Haber's wings. After the silver dragon scales were burned by the lava, they were charred black. Arthur Alberta Haber couldn't even avoid Haber Timur Haber's firebird. This was the difference between dragon kings and those below them. Even numbers couldn't make up for such a huge gap. First, your daughter. Haber Timur Haber looked at Varian Max. Varian's expression changed. Varian, how long has it been since we last saw each other? Haber Timur Haber grinned and looked at Varian Marks mockingly. Has it been 100 years? Let me remember. Sorry. I really can't remember. At that time, the last time we saw each other, you were trembling in front of me, remember? Varian's expression was one of shock and bewilderment. She was still immersed in what Haber Timur Haber had just said. Arthur Alberta Haber was her father? How was this possible? Arthur Alberta Haber suddenly broke free from the magma tentacles restraint. He suddenly rushed towards Haber Timur Haber. Shut up, bastard. Hee. Haber Timur Haber's finger pressed down gently. In an instant, Arthur Alberta Haber was pressed down on the rock. At this moment, 2 figures that looked like giant dragons slowly landed in front of Haber Timur Haber. One was 7 or 8 meters long and looked like a big lizard with wings. The other still retained its human form, but it also had a pair of dragon wings. Master. The 2 figures were Old Max and Caesar Max. Haber Timur Haber looked at the 2 of them. Very good, you did very well, Haber Timur Haber said. Doing my best for Master is what I should do. As a reward for you, before I give you the reward, you can make a request that doesn't conflict with the reward I want to give. Master, I want. Caesar Max couldn't wait to speak, but he was interrupted by old Max. Master, I don't need a reward. I just want to be able to continue serving you. Old Max was, after all, a shrewd old man. Of course, he wouldn't be so loyal and generous to give up the reward. He just wanted to make his attitude clear. Haber Timur Haber laughed. Very good, very good. I like people like you. Old Max lowered his head even more, while Caesar Max looked at his father with a bit of dissatisfaction. Old Max lowered his head and glanced at Caesar Max out of the corner of his eye. This idiot? All right. In that case, as a reward, I've decided to make you a part of me. Old Max and Caesar Max looked at Haber Timur Haber with puzzled eyes. Master, I don't understand. Father, brother, run? Jane Fankel screamed at the top of her lungs. Run? What? Old Max and Caesar Max didn't understand what Jane Fankel meant by that. But in the next moment, the two of them felt as though something was trying to break through their bodies. The first was Caesar Max. A bowl-sized hole suddenly appeared in his chest. A large amount of blood burst out of his chest and gathered in front of him. Old Max followed closely behind. His huge body caused him to suffer even more pain. A large amount of blood burst out of his chest and gathered in front of him. Why? Why? Old Max roared with the last of his strength. Why? It seems that you are far less intelligent than your daughter. Haber Timur Haber said with a mocking tone, I once told you that what I left in your bodies is a seed. What is the purpose of planting the seed? Of course, I hope that one day it can bloom and bear fruit and then I will collect the fruit. You lunatic. Arthur Alberta Haber growled, their strength is nothing to you. Chapter 2642. I never waste any bit of power. That's my strength. Haber Timur Haber smiled. He watched as the two balls of blood, one big and one small, came in front of him. He gently caught them with his palm and absorbed them. He liked this feeling very much. He had even become addicted to it. However, it was not easy to cultivate descendants. It was too troublesome for dragons to reproduce. He had spent most of his time breeding or on the way to breeding. But there were not many who really succeeded. Jane Fankel looked at her two closest relatives who had fallen into the magma. She had collapsed and knelt on the ground. Haber Timur Haber looked at Jane Fankel and grabbed at her through the air. At that moment, Zephyr made her move. Zephyr pulled Jane Fankel over and threw out a dragon blood grenade at the same time. This dragon blood grenade was made from the blood of dragons. In a sense, the dragon blood grenade was a magic weapon of the dragon ascension. Of course, it was more like a modern thermal weapon. After all, the principle was the same. It was just that dragon blood was added. And the dragon blood added to the dragon blood grenade was actually not real dragon blood. After all, that thing was very precious. Even the Dragon Slayer organization would not use dragon blood to make a high-consumption dragon blood grenade. Haber Timur Haber stood where he was. He could completely avoid the dragon blood grenade. But he had no intention of doing so at all. The dragon blood grenade exploded on his body. In an instant, the dragon blood grenade exploded with a crimson flame impact and instantly shrank. A large pit several meters deep was left on the ground. However, after the explosion of the dragon blood grenade subsided, Haber Timur Haber stood there unscathed. Haber Timur Haber looked at Zephyr with a playful gaze. Do you like to play like this? Then let's play. Haber Timur Haber took a piece of dragon scale from his arm and threw it away. The dragon scale turned into a dragon beast. Arthur Alberta Haber's expression changed. What kind of magic was this? Summoning magic? No, this dragon beast had the aura of Haber Timur Haber. It was not summoned from other places. It was a part of Haber Timur Haber. But how did he do it? Turning a scale into a dragon? Generally speaking, the offspring of the dragon clan and other species were called half-dragons, which meant that they were the descendants of the dragon clan. The half-dragon would then interbreed with other creatures to give birth to draconic beasts. Most of the dragons were very powerful, although it was definitely not comparable to the dragon race. But compared to the vast majority of creatures, dragon beasts were already invincible. Jevra did not think so. She took a step forward as if she was going to face the dragon alone. Varian Marx pulled Jevra back. Don't worry, Zephyr said calmly. Varian looked at the Cyclops and then at Zephyr. In the end, she could only say one word, be careful. Zevra bent over and drew out her pair of daggers. The daggers were hidden in her boots. Throughout the journey, Zephyr had never used it. Haber Timur Haber looked like he was watching a show. At first Jevra's footsteps were just a stroll. But gradually her speed became faster and faster and in the end it became a sprint. The daggers were placed in front of her and behind her. The dragon suddenly leaped forward, opening its mouth and pouncing towards Zevra. Zevra's figure changed. She leaped high into the air, somersaulted in mid-air, and stabbed the daggers in her hands down. Ding! Sparks flew, but the dragon was unharmed. Zevra's reaction was also very fast. After her attack failed, she immediately retreated. However, the dragon chased after her and swung its tail. "Be careful," Varian Marks exclaimed. Zevra was in a dangerous situation. If the dragon swung its tail hit her, she would probably be smashed into meat paste. Just then, Zevra crossed the two daggers in front of her. When the dragon swung its tail, Zevra used the flexibility of the daggers to retreat even faster. Zevra's feet kept retreating on the ground and she finally stopped. What amazing combat skills. She actually withstood such a heavy attack. Varian exclaimed in astonishment. What she did not know was that Zafra had only recently developed her fighting skills. She was able to develop this combat skill because she had an imaginary enemy. And this imaginary enemy was Qin Zhao. The development process was even smoother than she had imagined. Together with this pair of specially made weapons, Zevra could easily defeat an enemy. Although it was her first time using this combat skill with the daggers, it was shockingly effective. Zevra moved her shoulders. Her muscles and bones started to relax. Haber Timur Haber raised an eyebrow. It seemed that the little girl did not use her full strength. She seemed to still have some leeway. Haber Timur Haber did not intend to interfere. He watched Zevra's next performance with interest. This time the dragon attacked first. Zevra moved and charged at the dragon. Amidst the lightning and thunder, the dragon's right eye was suddenly pierced by Zevra. Zevra, on the other hand, avoided the dragon's huge body in the blink of an eye. The dragon howled in pain. It turned around and spat a mouthful of saliva at Zevra. However, this attack could not even reach Zevra's shadow. Zevra flashed again and appeared under the dragon's abdomen. The dragon was still wondering where Zevra had gone. Zevra's two swords had already cut open the dragon's abdomen. The battle ended with Zevra's easy victory. Clap, clap, clap. Haber Timur Haber clapped his hands. Beautiful, what a beautiful combat skill. There's a dragon called the Combat Master among the dragons. I suspect that you're his descendant. Zevra wiped away the blood on her sword and pointed at Haber Timur Haber. Haber Timur Haber looked at Zevra. You don't think that your skill will work on me, do you? Zevra calmly looked at Haber Timur Haber and shook her head. If that's the case, why are you pointing your sword at me? Are you going to fight me to the death? Zevra shook her head again. I just want to tell you that my boss is here. Your boss? Who's your boss? The leader of the Dragon Slayer organization? Haber Timur Haber asked in confusion. He was not the only one confused. The others were confused as well. Varian's face was full of greetings. The leader of the Dragon Slayer organization? That guy did not seem powerful and was very short. Would he dare to come? Chapter 26:43. Thud, 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 the loud sound came from above. It was like a pile driver pounding the ground. At first it was a bit light, but the next time it would be heavier, heavier, heavier. More rocks began to fall from above. It was as if a pile driver was really working on it. Bang! Suddenly, a hole appeared in the cubic ceiling above. Then a figure descended from the sky. Everyone looked at the figure and realized that it was an Asian man holding a round pig. Seeing Qin Zhao, Jane Fankel had a strange expression. Wasn't that Qin Zhao? To be honest, her appearance here was largely related to Qin Zhao. Boss, Zephyr called. Everyone froze. Boss? Was this guy Zephyr's boss? Qin Zhao nodded and scanned the scene. Which side is the enemy? Which side is on our side? Qin Zhao asked. Or are both dragons enemies? Zephyr glanced at Arthur Alberta Haber and said, he's on our side at least for now. So, this guy is the enemy? Qin Zhao pointed at Haber and asked, you're the leader of the dragons? I'll soon become the leader of the dragons, Haber said confidently. Haber Timur Haber said confidently, human, you better show me some respect. That way I will forgive your sins after you die. Sorry, Qin Zhao said relaxing. I've killed a lot of dragons, so it's hard for me to show some respect to an unfamiliar dragon. Haber Timur Haber's face darkened, and his finger pressed down. Instantly, a terrifying dragon's might pressed down on Qin Zhao's face. A huge pit instantly appeared in the ground around Qin Zhao. However, Qin Zhao hovered in place. Even the round pig in Qin Zhao's arms was unharmed, let alone Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao also raised his finger and pointed at Haber Timur Haber. A small black ball appeared before his finger. Pop! Haber Timur Haber's entire body was sent flying, crashing into a rock wall in the distance. It really isn't the Dragon King, Qin Zhao muttered to himself. I heard that the Dragon King is powerful, but this guy is too weak. However, Qin Zhao's words made everyone speechless. Wait, this guy said that Haber Timur Harper was weak? In what way did he know that Haber Timur Haber was weak? Jane Fankel did not expect Qin Zhao to be so powerful. Don't be careless, human. Your attack has no effect on him. Arthur Alberta Haber said seriously. Silver Dragon, are you an ice elemental? That doesn't seem to be the case. I once killed an ice-type silver dragon, but I didn't feel any chill from your body. Are you interested in becoming part of my collection? Arthur Alberta Haber's face darkened. He was speechless at the human in front of him. He suddenly felt that it would be better if Haber Timur Haber killed this guy. Roar! Haber Timur Haber jumped up from the rubble and instantly transformed into his dragon form. His body was close to 1,000 meters long, and he was covered in grayish-red patterns. There were also many pairs of dragon horns on his head, making him look even more sinister and terrifying. Arthur Alberta Haber's expression changed again. Both Haber Timur Haber's power and body were becoming stronger. I'm going to kill you. Human, I want. Kill. You. Dozens of magic formations of various sizes appeared around Haber Timur Haber. All of them pointed at Qin Zhao. Every single one of the magic arrays was brewing a terrifying spell. Everyone's nerves were tense to the extreme. Some even blamed Qin Zhao. After all, Qin Zhao had only appeared for a minute. He had successfully angered Haber Timur Haber. This also made them face a more serious and dangerous situation. Qin Zhao stood where he was and looked at Haber Timur Haber in the distance. You're weaker than I thought. Very well, then I'll show you my puny strength. Go to hell. In an instant, all the magic formations burst out with terrifying spells. Dozens of terrifying magic beams blasted at Qin Zhao. However, when the magic beams were within 1,000 meters of Qin Zhao, they began to visibly weaken. When they were within 100 meters, they had weakened to only 1/10 of their original power. When they reached Qin Zhao, they were no more powerful than inferior fireball. Qin Zhao laughed. Are you kidding me? Or, did you not eat breakfast? Haber Timur Haber flew into a rage. His power had increased tenfold, but his IQ seemed to have increased in the opposite direction. Or rather, he had inflated. Using his huge body, Haber Timur Haber pounced at Qin Zhao. In everyone's eyes, he was like a flying mountain. Haber Timur Haber's body might be 1,000,000 tons. The oppressive feeling brought about by the overwhelming aura made it difficult for everyone to breathe. At this time, Qin Zhao also moved. Moreover, Qin Zhao was much faster than Haber Timur Haber. Everyone felt their vision blur. Then they realized that Qin Zhao had disappeared. The next moment, they saw Haber Timur Haber's lower abdomen cave in. His huge body fell down too, his back smashing heavily into the ground. Then, everyone saw Qin Zhao appear above Haber Timur Haber. Haber Timur Haber was shocked. He wanted to climb up, but he realized that he was controlled by a terrifying power. Without hesitation, Haber Timur Haber spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at Qin Zhao. The terrifying dragon breath traveled thousands of meters in an instant and swallowed Qin Zhao. But the power controlling him didn't weaken. Haber Timur Haber screamed in pain. Everyone saw that Haber Timur Haber's left forelimb had been strangely torn off. Qin Zhao stood there unharmed. He was still holding Roundy with one hand. Right now, Qin Zhao was looking down at Haber Timur Haber with a condescending gaze. Among my many opponents, you should be the weakest. You seem to be very unfamiliar with your power. Everyone was speechless. Haber Timur Haber? The weakest? What was this guy's standard? However, at this moment, no one could raise any objections. Because Qin Zhao seemed to be one-sidedly beating Haber Timur Haber. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2644. This wasn't because Qin Zhao was being arrogant. Or perhaps it was because he was humiliating Haber Timur Haber. He truly felt that Haber Timur Haber was very weak. Haber Timur Haber's aura wasn't weak. At the very least, he was considered average among the great lords Shifeng had fought before. However, the strength he displayed was definitely an insult to Qin Zhao's power level. I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Kill you. Haber Timur Haber roared crazily. He'd obtained supreme power, but on the same day he'd lost a claw. Terrifying magic power brewed inside Haber Timur Haber's body. I told you, you're too immature when it comes to using power. You shouldn't have brewed your magic power in front of the enemy. Qin Zhao waved his hand. thousands of black balls appeared around him. Qin Zhao didn't even have to use his full strength. The thousands of black balls were like a bullet storm. They shot directly at Haber Timur Haber at an astonishing speed. These black balls weighed tens of thousands of tons. One could imagine how terrifying the power would be under such high-speed shooting. Thousands of small black balls shot out crazily. Haber Timur Haber actually didn't die. Qin Zhao was amazed by Haber Timur's tenacious vitality. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this still the insufferably arrogant Haber Timur Haber? At the moment, Haber Timur Haber was covered in wounds. Haber Timur Haber didn't even have a chance to fight back. Qin Zhao still held Roundy in one hand and controlled the battle with the other. He controlled the entire situation. But for Zephyra, she only had one feeling. Qin Zhao had become stronger again. Haber Timur Haber didn't want to wait for death like this. He unleashed his dragon's might at full power. Qin Zhao's hand paused. All the black balls lost control and fell. Next, Haber Timur Haber opened his bloody mouth and bit at Qin Zhao in the sky. However, Qin Zhao dodged Haber Timur's attack at an even faster speed. Qin Zhao's lips curled into a smile. "You're more like it now." Right now, Haber Timur's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Qin Zhao with hatred. His strength increased again, and anger and madness caused his fusion with the ancient Dragon Ball to become even more radical. This was a good thing but also not a good thing. The surrounding magma began to boil and gather towards Haber Timur Haber. A magma dragon claw grew out of Haber Timur Haber's severed limb. "I'm no longer afraid of you." Haber Timur Haber moved his magma dragon claws. Qin Zhao smiled. "You still have a lot of room for improvement." "I'm already strong enough." The lava was repairing his body. Even his uninjured skin was covered in lava. This was the power of a domain, completely different from the domains of the past. To be precise, his domain was replaced by this scorching hot domain. Not enough. Qin Zhao moved again. A punch pierced through Haber Timur's magma body. Haber Timur's huge body flew backward at a shocking speed. When it fell into the magma, it set off huge waves. The lava covering his skin didn't protect him at all. Even against Qin Zhao, the lava didn't have the desired effect. Suddenly, the lava lake exploded, and a terrifying lava dragon appeared in front of everyone. The dragon's upper body was already 3,000 meters long. Its entire body was probably over 5,000 meters long. Before the lava dragon, Qin Zhao was as small as an ant. This was definitely the largest enemy Qin Zhao had ever faced. There was no other. "Tremble under my power." Haber Timur Haber roared. Everyone was completely shocked by the scene before them. Even Arthur Alberta Haber was no exception. Was there really anything in the world that could fight against such power? Qin Zhao was still calm. He turned to look at Refra. "Help me hold it." With his hands free, Qin Zhao could finally put his heart and soul into the battle. To be precise, Qin Zhao had thought of a good idea. An idea that Qin Zhao had rejected. Zhang Ting had mentioned it to Qin Zhao before. However, Qin Zhao had rejected it back then. Qin Zhao didn't walk fast. He strolled toward the magma dragon. Haber Timur Haber seemed to think that he would definitely win. He wasn't in a hurry to attack. While he was displaying his power, he was also enjoying it. Such a powerful force brought him an unprecedented pleasure. "Feel my anger." Haber Timur Haber raised his huge claw and slapped at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao raised two fingers and swiped at the air. In an instant, Haber Timur Haber's claws separated from his huge body once again. The claw turned into lava and scattered, but Haber Timur didn't care. This was because there was enough lava here for him to repair his damaged body. Qin Zhao was just trying out a small part of it. He just wanted to see how effective this move was. He had to admit that this move was indeed quite effective. At least it was effective against a newbie. Actually, this move was a modified version of Neutron Star. Originally, it compressed air into an extremely small volume. This move, which Qin Zhao had named Scalpel, was essentially Neutron Star. It was just that the shape was changed to that of a knife. Because it was mainly made of air, the knife couldn't be seen. Qin Zhao waved his hand lightly and the magma dragon's head was cut off. However, it still didn't hurt Haber Timur Haber at all. The magma dragon's head grew back. "It's useless. I'm immortal now. You can't kill me." Qin Zhao couldn't help but laugh out loud. In the past, people had said that they were immortal before Qin Zhao. They'd all be ravaged by Qin Zhao and then slapped into the wall. Now there were people saying such things. Especially people at Haber Timur Haber's level. Was he really a newbie? He actually dared to say such a stupid lie in such a solemn manner. "What are you laughing at?" Haber Timur Haber was like a mouse whose tail had been stepped on. He questioned Chen Zhao angrily. Next time you make up a lie like this, you have to hide your real body first. Don't hide under my feet and use a fake body made by magic to fool me. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2645. Haber Timur Haber's performance was indeed extremely stupid. He thought that by hiding in the lava, he could avoid Chen Zhao's senses. He used the huge lava body to deceive Chen Zhao's senses. On the other hand, the lava dragon was basically unkillable. He felt that he could just use the lava dragon to continuously consume Chen Zhao's power. That way he would be invincible. Chen Zhao sneered. You still want to run now? Chen Zhao's power of the universe seeped into the lava. They caught Haber Timur Haber. Then, everyone saw Haber Timur Haber's huge body being dragged out of the lava. Haber Timur was astonished. The human before him was so strong that he didn't seem human. It was a completely unreasonable kind of power. Haber Timur Haber struggled to break free from the bindings. He used his strongest dragon's might to shatter the power that bound him. Chen Zhao also let go of the restraints. Trying to completely restrain an enemy of the same level with just the power of the small world was indeed wishful thinking. Chen Zhao was stronger than Haber Timur Haber. While Haber Timur was weaker than Chen Zhao, he wasn't much weaker. At least they were at the same level of power. Haber Timur lost more because he wasn't familiar with his own power. It wasn't just that he wasn't familiar with the power of a great lord. Haber Timur's control and use of power was something that even a normal lord would find difficult to achieve. He had created the lava dragon with his power. It did look mighty and extraordinary, but it was just an empty shell. Even if Chen Zhao stood there and let the lava dragon hit him, he might not even break a layer of skin. Haber Timur's performance was basically at the level of a middle school student who had gotten a master's degree. When he walked out, he told people that he had a master's degree. In the end, he was as fierce as a tiger. He wasn't even at the level of a high school student. At this level, he could only fool Arthur Alberta Haber, who was also a middle school student. In front of Chen Zhao, he would be beaten into a pig's head. After breaking free, Haber Timur Haber immediately flapped his wings and flew away from Chen Zhao's small world. Immediately after, Haber Timur's body shook violently, and the scales on his body started to fall. When those scales fell, they turned into dragon beasts in midair. The big ones were dozens of meters long, and the small ones were only a dozen meters long. Some could soar in the sky while others fell directly into the magma. In an instant, Haber Timur Haber had created an army of countless dragons. Even Chen Zhao was dumbfounded. This method was similar to Huaxia's magic arsenal. However, quantity was useless in front of Chen Zhao. In a normal battle between great lords, no one would use such a method. Even if Shi Feng had an endless supply of troops, he wouldn't use them in a battle between great lords. No matter how many soldiers they had, they could not withstand a massacre by a great lord. But now Haber Timur Haber had used such a stupid method. Even more stupid was that the dragon army was made from Haber Timur Haber's flesh and blood. To put it bluntly, Haber Timur Haber had created them with his own flesh and blood. It was a spectacular scene. The sky was filled with dragons. Chen Zhao twisted his neck and glanced at Haber Timur Haber. I suddenly don't want to kill you anymore. Be my breeding pig and I'll keep you alive. How about that? Human. You're dead. I'll definitely kill you. Such words were a great insult to anyone, not to mention Haber Timur Haber, who had already become arrogant. When the 100,000 black balls appeared in the surroundings, both friend and foe were dumbfounded. The densely packed black balls were no weaker than the dragon army, especially Haber Timur Haber. Especially Haber Timur Haber. He had already experienced the power of those little black balls. Now that the countless black balls had appeared, he had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. In an instant all the black balls shot out. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse. The black balls would die with one knock or become crippled with one touch. How could he fight? At that moment, Haber Timur Haber also felt that his move was stupid. The dragon army couldn't even attack Chen Zhao. They couldn't even get close to Chen Zhao's small world. The magma lake churned, setting off terrifying waves. However, this attack wasn't enough to kill Haber Timur Haber. Primordial Regression Technique, Level 2. Chen Zhao stomped on the ground. The ground he stepped on cracked instantly. Chen Zhao shot out like a fleeting shadow. In a thousandth of a second, Chen Zhao had pierced through Haber Timur Haber's abdomen and shot out from his back. At the same time, a dragon ball appeared in his hand. Haber Timur Haber was still in a daze. The result was already out. He turned back to look at Chen Zhao and his dragon ball. He reached out with his claws trying to grab Chen Zhao. He wanted to take back his Dragon Ball. However, his body continued to fall. At this moment, everyone was silent. The insufferably arrogant Haber Timur Haber had finally been defeated. Suddenly, Qin Zhao grabbed Haber Timur Haber, who was about to fall into the lava lake. The body of the Dragon King was a good thing. How could Qin Zhao let go of Haber Timur's body? But at that moment, an unfamiliar yet powerful aura appeared without warning. Qin Zhao immediately felt that Haber Timur's body was being pulled by another force. Qin Zhao saw a shadow appear in front of him. He was 100 meters away from Qin Zhao. At the same time, one of his hands was grabbing at Haber's body. Although the shadow's aura was very faint, Qin Zhao could still vaguely feel it. Another giant dragon. And a Dragon King too. Father? Arthur Alberta Haber exclaimed. Arthur Alberta Haber didn't expect his father to come as well. Or rather, he had always been here. You want to steal my spoils of war? Or do you want to be my spoils of war too? Human, he's my child. The Dragon King's tone was somewhat angry. I don't care whose son he is. I only know that he's my spoils of war. Do you want humans to start a war with dragons? Do you? Qin Zhao wouldn't be threatened. He was just a nobody among humans. But the other was the leader of the dragons, so he could say whatever he wanted. Would the other dare? Jiuqian Divine Emperor. Chapter 2646. Of course, the Dragon King didn't want to start a war. The dragons didn't have the advantage in the first place. Now, such a monster had appeared among the humans. Even he wasn't sure if he could defeat Qin Zhao. So if a war really started, then the dragons might really be wiped out. Maintaining the current situation was beneficial to both the dragons and humans. Threats were fine, but it was impossible to start a real war. For beings of their level, any threat was meaningless. Unless he could truly be free from all attachments. The Dragon King stared at Qin Zhao. He seemed to be trying to force Qin Zhao with his eyes. Unfortunately, he was the one who compromised in the end. Although he was very unhappy that his child's body was taken as a trophy. But as the leader of the dragons, he couldn't be stubborn to the end. Of course, in the end it was still because he wasn't strong enough. Strength was the most important factor in judging each other. If he was strong enough, it would be nice even if the other's words were bullshit. If he wasn't strong enough, then compromise was the only choice. For example, the situation the Dragon King was facing now. The Dragon King glanced at Arthur Alberta Haber and said, "Come back with me." The Dragon King was really afraid that Qin Zhao would kill his last son too if he was too careless. Arthur Alberta Haber glanced at various marks behind him. He pursed his lips but didn't say anything in the end. The Dragon King didn't care if Arthur Alberta Haber was willing or not. He waved his hand and an unpredictable chain shot out from his hand. It wrapped around Arthur Alberta Haber's neck and then pulled hard. Arthur Alberta Haber's body also followed into nothingness. Qin Zhao didn't stop Arthur Alberta Haber from leaving. After all, he could tell friend from foe. Then the Dragon King and Arthur Alberta Haber disappeared before Qin Zhao's eyes. Qin Zhao didn't know how they left. But thinking about it, a dragon leader who had been a leader for thousands of years must have a lot of tricks up his sleeve. At least he wasn't a dabbler like Haber Timur Haber. Qin Zhao glanced at Haber Timur's huge corpse. With a wave of his hand, he put Haber's corpse away. Then he looked at Refra and the others. "I'll send you out." Everyone felt their bodies lighten and then they floated up. At first it was quite novel. But then the feeling didn't feel good. Qin Zhao would never consider the feelings of the passengers. So when Qin Zhao sped up, they felt quite uncomfortable. The powerful air pressure directly squeezed and deformed the skin on their faces. Moreover, Qin Zhao had created an even bigger hole in it. He returned to the surface in the most barbaric way possible. When everyone returned to the ground again, everyone had a surreal feeling. Especially Jane Fankel. She did not expect the Asian she had interacted with before. He actually had such a terrifying side to him. She had originally thought that Haber Timur Haber was the most terrifying existence. But when Qin Zhao appeared, Haber Timur Haber was like a child before Qin Zhao. He was beaten up and humiliated. Haber Timur Haber seemed really weak. But everyone knew that Haber Timur Haber was very powerful, so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. However, Qin Zhao's power was dominating. He was unreasonably strong. Jane Fankel thought of her father and brother. They had even provoked Qin Zhao before. If they died now, Qin Zhao would probably kill them with a slap. Qin Zhao looked at Refra and took the round ball from her hands. "After you're done with your personal matters, hurry back. I still have many things to do. Portia can't handle them all by herself." "Got it, boss. Then I'll go back first." With that, Qin Zhao disappeared into the night sky. Everyone heaved a long sigh of relief as if they had just woken up from a dream. Even Varian had mixed feelings at the moment. Qin Zhao looked easygoing, but she felt that he was like a volcano. He was a human who dared to go against the Dragon King. He was far more dangerous than any of the giant dragons. The next day, Refra and Portia came to work together. Qin Zhao was a bit surprised that Refra came back so early. "Refra, you didn't rush back overnight, right?" Qin Zhao asked. "There's a flight to L.A., so I came back on the way. I thought you needed a day or two off." "It's a festival in your hometown," Refra said. "Okay," Qin Zhao said. "I have a lot of things to do at home today. I need to prepare clothes for the kids." In some aspects, Qin Zhao was more traditional. Even though he was in a foreign country, he still followed Chinese traditions. He had been abroad for more than 2 years and 3 Chinese New Years. He didn't miss any of them because of other reasons. He didn't buy firecrackers that could go off in the tens of thousands, but he did get some that could go off in the thousands. Also, no one would care if he set them off in his own territory. Kids loved to set off firecrackers. Even foreign kids were no exception. This was because firecrackers could stimulate their senses and vision. Although they were a bit scared, the boys still gathered their courage to light the firecrackers. Qin Zhao even gave them some firecrackers for fun. Since it was New Year's Eve, the more lively the better. Qin Zhao prepared a lot of food and beer in the yard. Drinking beer in February was definitely not bad. Qin Zhao didn't want to have a reunion dinner like in China. He wanted to have a reunion dinner, but he wanted a more relaxing way. The kids were playing with firecrackers. When they were tired, thirsty, or hungry, they would come over to eat something. Then they would continue playing. Then Clive, Ampa, and their kids arrived. Qin Zhao had invited the whole family. He had also invited Murphy, Rebecca, Bant, Mary, and Ken. He had invited all the people in town who were close to him. Other than preparing red packets for his kids, he also prepared red packets for Clive and Ampa's kids. There wasn't much money inside, just 2 $20 bills. Too much wasn't suitable. Around $40. That was around $200 in China, less than $300. Clive and Ampa roughly knew Chinese customs, so they didn't let their kids reject Qin Zhao's red packets. Then everyone sat together and chatted. The men went in groups and the women went in groups. This lasted from the afternoon until it was almost midnight. Then everyone left one by one. Qin Zhao also let Refra and Portia go back after a busy day. Chapter 2647. Before and after the New Year were 2 completely different feelings. Before the New Year, he felt like he had a lot of things to do. But after the New Year, he felt like everything had disappeared. He just lay there doing nothing every day. Qin Zhao believed that he wasn't the only one who felt this way. It seemed like every Chinese had the same feeling. Of course, Qin Zhao would enter the river diagram to cultivate every day for different lengths of time. As the small world continued to be refined, Qin Zhao felt that it had gone through a complete transformation. The growth and power level was nothing now. Qin Zhao was now more than 10 times stronger than before he started cultivating the small world. This kind of improvement couldn't make Qin Zhao happy anymore. What really excited him was that the small world seemed to be growing in a certain direction. But that feeling couldn't be described with words. It was that kind of conjecture and specious feeling. This kind of growth didn't come from an instant epiphany. It had to be accumulated over a long period of time. Moreover, it couldn't be done in a day or two. To put it bluntly, even after Bifla, Zhang Tianyi, and the 23rd Blood Mary activated their small worlds, they might not have enough time to refine them. This slow speed made Qin Zhao speechless. Even in the river diagram, Qin Zhao still felt that the speed was 1,000 times faster. Compared to the continuous increase in his combat power, Qin Zhao cared more about the growth of the small world. In the past, Qin Zhao had never actively cultivated. Most of the time he just passively increased his power. But now Qin Zhao was looking forward to the growth and changes of the small world. Qin Zhao had a feeling that if the small world improved, there would be a very special change. "Hey Zhang, what's up?" Qin Zhao was meditating by the lake when he received Zhang Tianyi's call. It was called meditation, but he was actually daydreaming. These days Qin Zhao was really bored to death. Before the New Year, Alex would call Qin Zhao many times a day. But recently there hadn't been a single call. Qin Zhao didn't know if Alex had picked the right time to make things difficult for him. "When are you coming back?" "In a few days." "You're not coming back earlier?" "Why would I go back earlier? I'm not going to make it through the Spring Festival." Actually, the Spring Festival traffic has eased a lot in the past 2 years. Ah. Qin Zhao did not believe it. It was a slogan from 20 years ago. The pressure of the Spring Festival had not decreased. Instead, it had increased year by year. This was a dividend brought about by the country's population, but at the same time, it also brought about a burden. Unless the various types of transportation in the country increased by 3 times, the pressure would still be the same. I said to wait for a few days. It's only a few days. Why are you in such a hurry? I just missed you. Bullshit. Qin Zhao answered the call and studied the sparkling lake. No one knew what he was thinking. You really don't plan to return to China soon? Why do you have to make life difficult for these few days? Isn't it just a few days? Won't it be over after you sleep? Get lost. How many days do you need to sleep? Anyway, I'm just going back to my country to have some fun and visit some scenic spots. You're urging me to go back, so you must have some hard work to do. Anyway, you better give up on this idea. I won't help you with any hard work. My Great Dragon Tiger Mountain is a national special tourist attraction. It's enough for you to play. Even if you want room service, I'll arrange it for you. You get lost too. You really don't plan to come back early? To tell you the truth, I've booked a plane. The flight is next Friday. I've already paid the deposit. If you help me pay the deposit, I'll go back early. How much? $2 million. Fuck off. Come back whenever you want. Zhang Tianyi hung up. Fuck off. You hang up as soon as we talk about money. So practical. Qin Zhao cursed and put the phone away. Because there were quite a lot of people returning this time, Qin Zhao's whole family was out. This was why Qin Zhao planned to book a private plane back. Plus, there were so many kids to take care of, so Vara and Portia had to come too. 2 days before the return, Qin Zhao got busy again. There were more than 20 suitcases of various sizes. Although they were only going out to play, they brought quite a lot of things. On the day of their return, Qin Zhao's family went to the airport in a grandiose manner. After boarding the connecting flight, the kids started to make a ruckus. To them, this place was like home. When the plane was about to take off, the stewardess calmed them down for a while. For the flight attendants of this flight, it was simply a flight to hell. When the stewardess was on a mission, the thing they were most afraid of was kids on the plane. However, there were only a few adults on this flight. The rest were all kids. However, they couldn't afford to offend these kids. After all, if their parents could charter the plane, it meant that their parents were rich. Just then, Qin Zhao received a call from Zhang Ting. Qin Zhao had already switched to the satellite phone so he could use it even on the plane. Boss, are you on the plane? Yes, we're on the plane, Qin Zhao said. Okay, I'm only going back to play. No need to trouble you. Have a good New Year. Boss, I've been cooped up at home for more than 10 days. I'm being urged to get married every day. Please pity me. Zhang Ting purposely sounded pitiful. Actually, it wasn't that she had to work. Even if she didn't want to stay at home, she could go anywhere. In fact, she had the awareness of an employee. Her boss was coming back to play. As his #1 trusted employee, if she didn't accompany him, she might be replaced. Okay. If you really want to come, then come. But I won't pay you during the holidays. Boss, doesn't that count as overtime? Then you should stay at home for the blind date. Qin Zhao joked with Zhang Ting for a while. After telling her the estimated arrival time of the flight, he hung up. Both Zhang Ting and Portia were Qin Zhao's employees, but their work attitudes were completely different. Portia only treated it as a job. She was Qin Zhao's employee. On the other hand, Zhang Ting had the awareness of becoming Qin Zhao's trusted employee. Under normal circumstances, there was no difference between the two. They were both doing their jobs within their scope. But there were differences. Simply speaking, anyone could do Portia's job. For example, Zephyr could even do it better. Zhang Ting was different. While she was doing her job, she could also help Qin Zhao complete tasks outside of her job. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't need Portia to change. At least within her job scope, it was enough for her to do her own job. Chapter 2648. Yo, you look so pretty today. Are you going out to receive a guest? Zhang Ting didn't turn around. From the tone, she knew it was her best friend and roommate, Yi Ziqing. Yi Ziqing always called herself a demoness and was used to speaking sarcastically. Yi Ziqing was also a top student in Shuimu and was the technical director of a listed company. The two had a lot of common topics. They lived together in an upscale apartment. The rent for this apartment wasn't cheap. It was 56,000 a month. Including property, utilities, heating, and other expenses, it added up to nearly 60,000 yuan. The two of them shared 30,000 a month. With such a high standard, it would be hard to maintain without a stable income. Yi Ziqing didn't even go home during the New Year. Zhang Ting only went back a few days before and after the New Year. My big boss is back in the country, Zhang Ting said. The big boss you said is rich enough to throw money at people? Yi Ziqing's eyes lit up and asked in surprise. Don't get any ideas. He has a family. He even has 2 children, Zhang Ting said. I'm not planning on seducing your big boss. I just want to see if he's interested in investing in any projects. I have a lot of good projects on hand, Yi Ziqing said. I'm just lacking rich people who have nowhere to spend their money. Yi Ziqing heard Zhang Ting mention her big boss before. During a trip abroad, this big boss spent millions of US dollars for her and his employees. He would send warmth to the company's employees every few days. In just a month he had already sent out millions of US dollars. He closed his eyes to make decisions and casually mentioned an animation company that was worth hundreds of millions of yuan. Yi Ziqing had come into contact with many rich people. Even the top tycoons in the country had come into contact with a few. But she had never seen such a rich person. Are you going to the airport now? I'll go with you. No, you don't know him. Introduce him to me. We've been sisters for so many years. No, I feel like you're going to seduce my big boss. Think about it. Who paid for you back then when you didn't have money to pay rent? Think about it, when you were working overtime every day and night, who was the one who sent you supper? Think about it. Who helped you vent your anger when you were played by a scumbag? Okay. I'll take you there. I'll take you there, okay? Yi Ziqing was complacent as if her scheme had succeeded. Zhang Ting was already used to Yi Ziqing's temper. If they didn't get along, they wouldn't have shared a room for so many years. Shanghai Airport was even busier than Los Angeles International Airport. 2 years ago, Qin Zhao also boarded the plane at Magic City Airport when he left the country. More than 2 years had passed, but the Shanghai airport had not changed much. Qin Zhao and his family walked out of the arrival gate. From afar they could see Zhang Ting waving a sign. Qin Zhao walked up. Long time no see. Boss, it hasn't even been a month. All right, who is this? My friend Yi Ziqing. I'm afraid I can't carry the luggage by myself, so I called my friend over to help. With that, Zhang Ting looked behind Qin Zhao. There was a foreign woman so beautiful that she was stunned by her beauty. She carried 2 children in her arms, and behind her were foreign children of various sizes. Further behind them were 2 foreign women who were pushing a highly stacked luggage on a cart. Zhang Ting recognized one of them. Qin Zhao had brought Portia to meet her once when he traveled abroad. Also, she'd seen Portia a few times during their video calls. However, she hadn't seen the younger foreign woman. Hello, Miss Yi. Qin Zhao shook hands with Yi Ziqing. This is my wife, Fei Lai. They're my children. You've met Portia and Zhang Ting. Also, that's Refra. She's also my assistant, but she asked for leave. This time she's coming back with me. Yi Ziqing was dumbfounded when she saw this big family. It was much bigger than she'd imagined. Thankfully, Zhang Ting was prepared. She knew that Qin Zhao had a big business and a lot of family members. She'd also booked a floor of the hotel. Miss Yi, what company do you work at? I wouldn't dare to say that, Yi Ziqing said, smiling. I work at Xiang Rong as their technical director. Qin Zhao had never heard of this so-called Xiang Rong company. However, from Yi Ziqing's tone, it should be a really cool company. Mr. Qin, do you plan to invest in China? Zhang Ting's current company is my investment. I mean business. Animation company is also business, right? Okay. Yi Ziqing understood that Qin Zhao was trying to brush her off. It seemed that this man wasn't as brainless as she'd heard from Zhang Ting. At least, this man wouldn't reveal anything before knowing the exact situation. Mr. Qin, do you have any plans after coming back? Play, Qin Zhao answered honestly. Yi Ziqing felt that she couldn't continue this conversation. In the past, she didn't need to bring up topics when she interacted with the rich. They basically couldn't leave their industry after 3 sentences. They'd talk about the current situation in 5 sentences. Or they'd find a good project or something. This was one of the basic qualities that allowed them to become rich. It was completely different from Qin Zhao before her. Were all banana people so hard to communicate with? Yi Ziqing completely treated Qin Zhao as a banana person. In reality, she didn't know that Qin Zhao had only made it in 1 or 2 years. It wasn't a problem for Qin Zhao to become one of the richest people. However, Qin Zhao didn't have that kind of mentality. When they arrived at the airport, Didi helped take care of the siblings. The others were in charge of moving the luggage onto the bus. While they were moving the luggage, Zhang Ting came to Qin Zhao's side and said, "Boss, Yezi has some good projects. If you're interested, you can ask her." Okay. In fact, this was how the so-called network was built. When Qin Zhao was in Los Angeles, he'd occasionally introduce himself like this. Although Zhang Ting only said one sentence, it was enough to help Yi Ziqing. After Chen Zhao arrived at the hotel, Zhang Ting immediately arranged a meal for his family. Of course, since they just returned from abroad, their first meal had to be Chinese. The restaurant Zhang Ting chose was also very particular. First, it had to be high class. After all, Chen Zhao's family couldn't go to a roadside restaurant. Secondly, the environment and location were all very meticulous. Zhang Ting, Miss Yi, it's my wife and 2 assistants' first time in China. Take them to the mall tonight. To be honest, they didn't really go shopping when they were abroad. It was mainly because the security abroad wasn't good. Unless Chen Zhao was with them, even Fei Lai didn't dare to go out. Although the business district was bustling, once you left the business district, it was basically a blind spot for public security. Chapter 2649. The adults went to the mall, of course. The kids went to Disneyland. What was the best place to show how many people there were in China? One was the train station and the other was the amusement park. The next day, Fei Lai, Portia, and Zephyr continued shopping. Chen Zhao brought the kids to the amusement park. In China, Chen Zhao really didn't need to worry about their safety. Apart from the fact that they were unfamiliar with the area, they had no other problems. Yi Ziqing also went shopping with Fei Lai and the others. She was a high-income person, but she was still shocked when she saw Fei Lai shopping. How did Fei Lai shop? When she saw something she liked, she didn't pick the color. Instead, she bought one of all the colors. She bought a Chanel handbag that cost more than 80,000. It was the same style with 3 colors and patterns. Fei Lai bought 3 of them. The salesgirl was so happy that she was about to blossom. As for Zephyr and Portia, their expressions were as calm as the clouds in the wind. They both knew how much money Chen Zhao could make. Even if Fei Lai tried her best, she probably wouldn't be able to spend all of Chen Zhao's money in a day. Yi Ziqing was already a bit dizzy. Fei Lai had already spent 1 million yuan in just one store. Plus, the amount on her black card was frighteningly high. Of course, Fei Lai didn't just buy it for herself. She would also buy it for Chen Zhao and the kids at home. Occasionally, she would turn around and ask Zephyr, Portia, and Yi Ziqing if they liked something. Yi Ziqing really wanted to maintain her composure. But when she saw the prices and the luxuries, there were many things that she could only drool over. Those luxuries could almost buy a toilet in Shanghai. Thus, Yi Ziqing reluctantly accepted them. Fei Lai had already spent a few million yuan in one shopping mall. Yi Ziqing felt as if she had just experienced a soul-stirring battle. There was only one thought in her mind. Evil capitalist. A Lancome lipstick with 16 colors in one color series. They were all bought in one go. Was this something a human would do? The rich women she had met in the past didn't do this either. Fei Lai, there's a Baroness store over there. Do you want to go? Baroness? The Baroness's boss is Chen's good friend. Every season, their new designs will be delivered directly to our house. Chen's and my daily suits are all custom-made by their designers. Chen seems to have gotten some of the Baroness's shares a while ago, so he's her boss now. Yi Ziqing hissed as she felt a toothache. The more she knew, the more dizzy she felt. Baroness had just entered the Chinese market. However, because of the brand's reputation, it had already gained a certain status in the international market. Last year, the Baroness was ranked 16th on the list of luxury goods. This was mainly related to their market share. However, their sales ratio could be ranked in the top 3 of similar luxury goods. Baroness was currently a private property and not a listed company. However, its brand value had already become a golden asset. Yi Ziqing had a good understanding of international finance. A gold asset like the Baroness would definitely know better. He didn't expect Chen Zhao to be able to buy the Baroness shares. She did not know that Chen Zhao and the Baroness boss, Zola, were close friends. Moreover, there was an exchange of interest. Furthermore, Zola did not have a lot of cash. She also did not want the shares to fall into the hands of strangers. Instead of selling to strangers, she might as well sell it to Chen Zhao. At least she knew Chen Zhao's background. Chen Zhao hugged little Larissa and Jerlin. As for the other children, they could do whatever they wanted. Chen Zhao's little world had been locking onto their positions. They could not run away. In fact, they could not even run out of the range of Chen Zhao's little world. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao had to admit that Huaxia was indeed the largest region in the spiritual world. Chen Zhao felt that there were at least 30 spiritualists in this amusement park. Of course, most of them came to play by themselves or with their families and children. Just then, Chen Zhao realized that one of the spiritualists seemed to have sensed something. It was a middle-aged man. He looked very tall and there was a little girl sitting on his neck. However, the middle-aged man seemed to be looking around as if he was looking for something. Finally, the man's gaze landed on Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao really did not expect that someone would be able to discover his little world. When the man saw the child in Qin Zhao's arms, he was stunned. Then, the man calmed himself down and walked over. "Hi, did you cast the sensing spell just now?" "Yes, did it affect you?" "Sir, that's not good," the man said. "Your actions will affect many people in public." "Sorry, my children are scattered in the amusement park. I was afraid that they would get lost, so to ensure their safety, I used a sensing spell." It seemed that the man had sensed Qin Zhao's little world with his sharp senses. He did not really discover the existence of the little world. Nevertheless, Qin Zhao had to admit that the man was quite skilled. At least, Qin Zhao could feel that the man's cultivation was very high. The magic rippling from him was even stronger than Norma, Halley's, and Jalanesh, who were the strongest in the supernatural organization. Was this the spiritual world of Huaxia? Qin Zhao had encountered such a powerful person in an amusement park. "You're sensing me again? Who are you? How come I don't know you at all?" The middle-aged man quietly took 2 steps back. For some reason he felt a bit creeped out when facing this young man. "I'm a returnee." Qin Zhao grinned. "I married a foreign woman." The middle-aged man glanced at Qin Zhao's 2 mixed-blood children. He actually believed Qin Zhao. "No wonder I've never heard of you in China," the middle-aged man said. "Then you have to follow some local rules. I only came into contact with the spiritual world overseas, so I don't really know the local rules." "I see. How about we find a place to sit?" the middle-aged man asked. "Sure, wait a moment. I'll call them back." Qin Zhao nodded. At the same time he sent a signal to his children, telling them all to come over. The middle-aged man looked at the foreign children surrounding Qin Zhao. "You're not a nanny overseas, right?" "They lost their parents, so I adopted them," Qin Zhao said casually. "Let's go. There's a roadside restaurant. Let's sit there." Chapter 2650. While talking to the middle-aged man, Qin Zhao found out that his name was Wang Hai. Qin Zhao carried little Larissa while the other kids ran around and played in the open-air restaurant he'd booked. "Xiao Qin, can I call you that?" "Of course." "Xiao Qin, what system are you in?" "Me. I'm more inclined toward strengthening. I learned some Western spells overseas, but I'm not good at them." Wang Hai reached out and pinched Qin Zhao's arm. Smiling, he said, "Strengthening isn't good in China." "What?" "Enhancers are more suited for martial arts. They aren't popular in the spirit world. There are too many spells in the spirit world that can restrain enhancers like you. Moreover, in the spirit world, enhancers are almost completely excluded." Qin Zhao rubbed his nose. Was he excluded from the spiritual world just like that? "But is your perception spell also Western?" "Nope," Qin Zhao said. "My foundation is Taoism. That doesn't count." Qin Zhao had previously received the legacy of Qingyi sect, and the cultivation method of Qingyi sect had also helped him a lot. However, the Qingyi sect was still a bit weak and basically couldn't help Qin Zhao anymore. Of course, Qin Zhao still admitted that he was from the Qingyi sect. Qin Zhao had entered the Qingyi sect, but it had always been passed down from generation to generation. Qin Zhao had also joined the sect with skills. Normally, he couldn't be considered a disciple. Del should be a true Qingyi disciple. Qin Zhao was more like a guardian elder of the Qingyi sect. Qin Zhao's cultivation was high enough and he was trusted by Li Qing. He wouldn't covet the Qingyi sect's techniques or take them for himself. Therefore, Li Qing gave Qin Zhao the identity of a guardian elder. Actually, the Qingyi sect only had 1 or 2 descendants now. They didn't care about disciples, leaders, or guardian elders. Qin Zhao could become a guardian elder with just a word from Li Qing. No one agreed or disagreed. It was like a shell company. Then the boss would appoint someone. Qin Zhao would be the company manager. This appointment was meaningless. "Oh, your perception spell was a Taoist spell?" "Sort of." "Your perception spell is impressive, but don't use it in public." "What?" "I'm not in anyone's way." "Do you mind if people use pinhole cameras to spy on you?" These are 2 different concepts, right?" "No, to the people of the spirit world they are just a concept." "All right, I'll be careful. Also, pay attention to the 3 Dan Ts in the country." "What are the 3 no's?" "Do not attack in front of ordinary people. Do not kill demons. Do not discuss the conflict between Buddhism and Taoism." Qin Zhao could understand the first 2, but he really didn't know that there was a conflict between Buddhism and Taoism in China. You can't make a move in front of ordinary people. This is a universal rule. Previously, during the Battle of Holy Glory, he had heard Zhang Tianyi talk about the general situation of the spiritual world in the country. Demons were also members of the supernatural world and had a close relationship with the government. However, Qin Zhao had never heard of the conflict between Buddhism and Taoism in Huaxia's supernatural world. Is the hostility between Buddhism and Taoism in the country very serious? Although they appear to be harmonious on the surface, in reality, they are at loggerheads with each other. They even kill each other in private. Someone died. Qin Zhao asked, curious about the gossip. It's normal. Last time, during the Buddha Mother Conference in the capital, a group of Taoists came to provoke them. The two sides fought and 3 people died. Then there was the Immortal Seeking Conference in Tsingtao. Brother Wang, are you a Buddhist or Taoist? I'm nothing. I'm just an amateur like you. Back in the day, I encountered something unclean at home, and it made the whole village restless. Later, a beggar came and took care of that unclean thing. After that, I learned from that beggar for more than 2 years. A few years ago the old beggar was getting old, and in the end I sent him on his last journey. Wang Hai sighed. My cultivation is neither good nor bad. There are too many capable people in the spiritual world in the country. I've been here for more than a decade. Now I'm counting on her. Wang Hai said, carrying the child. This made Qin Zhao feel like some parents who wanted their children to fulfill their unfulfilled wishes. It seemed like they wanted their children to be successful, but it was actually an irresponsible shirking. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't say this out loud. At the end of the day, it was Wang Hai's own business. Xiao Qin, are you planning to come back to develop your career? Qin Zhao was about to speak when Wang Hai said, if possible, I'll stay abroad. Nowadays, as long as the cultivators from the spiritual world have some tricks up their sleeves and aren't scammers, they can make a name for themselves abroad. They also believe in cultivators like us abroad. The competition in the country is too fierce. Then why don't you go abroad? I want to, but I don't have any connections. It's easy, but I can't just stand on the streets. Wang Hai paused and said, oh, there's an operation tonight. Are you interested in joining? What operation? Hanwang Mountain was dug up by a group of grave robbers 3 months ago. Several archaeological teams went in, but only one came out alive. But he was also crazy. Then, the higher-ups reported this matter to the paranormal organizations of all levels. Then, the paranormal organizations in the city assigned a task. Whoever can pacify the things in the ancient tomb of Hanwang Mountain can go and claim the reward. Hanwang Mountain? It's a mountain in the northern suburbs of Shanghai. It's empty, but the things inside are really fierce. It's said that an ancient spirit has revived. Last time they organized a group of cultivators to clear out Hanwang Mountain, but they were defeated. Tonight's the second operation. Anyone can join? Basically, it's getting rid of evil for the people. Why can't you? As long as you're not a beggar, it's fine. Plus, you just came back from overseas. Let me take you to broaden your horizons tonight. No matter what Wang Hai was thinking, Qin Zhao was really interested. Qin Zhao really wanted to broaden his horizons. He planned to go play with Wang Hai. Qin Zhao treated Wang Hai to a meal and then returned to the hotel with the kids. At night, Qin Zhao planned to leave the kids with Portia and Remy and then go out to broaden his horizons. The two agreed to meet at midnight. At 11:30, Qin Zhao arrived at the agreed place. They were all modern people. It wasn't some wilderness, just a roadside stall. However, Qin Zhao noticed that Wang Hai was even earlier than him. Apart from Wang Hai, there were 2 other people, one tall and one short. They seemed to be a group. At the moment, the 3 were drinking beer and eating skewers. Brother Qin, you're here. Let me introduce you. These 2 are my old friends from Taihang Mountain in Jin Province. Zhou Yinan and Li Ku. Hello, Brother Qin. The short Li Ku held Qin Zhao's hand with both hands. Brother Qin, where are you getting rich now? Jiutian Xinhuang. Chapter 2651. Li Ku looked like a merchant on the street. His first reaction when he saw Qin Zhao was a professional smile and politeness. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't dislike this. After all, everyone had their own way of survival. The taller Zhou Yinan looked much more honest. Qin Zhao noticed that his hands were rough and not very clean. Zhou Yinan probably did some heavy work in a construction site. Both of them had good cultivation. After Wang Hai's introduction, the 3 got to know each other. Li Ku was a small merchant. His net worth was probably a few million. However, his cultivation method was passed down in his family. Although he'd been doing business these years, he hadn't slacked off in his cultivation. He often sparred with cultivators in the spiritual world. He also had his own circle. Zhou Yinan was also part of this circle. Among ordinary people, he was just a construction worker. His income was actually quite good among ordinary people. So, he didn't need anyone to pity him. Plus, he had a happy family and a peaceful life. Moreover, his sect could be considered a prestigious one, although it wasn't famous now. However, he was quite famous in the Jin province. Zhou Yinan also cultivated the 5 elements sex cultivation method, the 5 elements divination technique. Combined with his job, it was a good fit. It's about time. Let's go now. Qin Zhao glanced at the 3. You've all drunk. I'll drive. Okay, brother Qin, you're smart. You drink and don't drive. Ha. In the car they went straight to the suburbs. After a few turns they entered a small village road. However, the car didn't enter the village. Instead it drove into the mountains. In the end, the car broke down at the entrance of a valley. The road was too difficult to drive on. They could only get out and continue. There's too much yin qi in this mountain, Zhou Yinan said. There must be many ghosts here. They probably all escaped from the tomb. Qin Zhao didn't see any yin qi here. After all, he'd mostly dispelled the Western spiritual world. Qin Zhao only felt that it was a bit cold here. Everyone take a few of these talismans. Don't let the yin qi invade your body and ruin your cultivation. Qin Zhao reached out, but the talisman suddenly burst into flames as soon as it touched his hand. Everyone was stunned. Zhou Yinan looked deeply at Qin Zhao but didn't say anything. Little brother Qin, your yang energy is very strong. Even if the yin energy here was 10 times stronger, it would not be able to invade your body. You don't have to use these talismans. Alright then. Qin Zhao guessed that Zhou Yinan must have seen something. It probably had something to do with the spontaneous combustion when he took the talisman. On the way up, Zhou Yinan was clearly avoiding Qin Zhao. Qin Haiquan pretended not to notice and continued walking behind Wang Hai, chatting and laughing. Li Ku and Zhou Yinan walked together. Li Ku seemed to notice something and asked in a low voice, Old Zhou, what's wrong with you? That kid didn't do anything to you. Why are you acting like a different person all of a sudden? Just now, when he took my True Yang talisman, it suddenly combusted, didn't you see it? I saw it. Your True Yang talisman was refined by you using Yang fire. It contains a trace of True Yang fire force. As you said, that kid's Yang qi is heavy. The True Yang fire force did not enter his body, it was directly released from the talisman. Do you remember the big incident in Huaxia 20 years ago? Yes, what about it? My master and I also participated in that incident, Zhou Yinan said. We were lucky enough to meet Celestial Master Zhang of Dragon Tiger Mountain. At the time he had just experienced a demon-slaying battle. It said that Celestial Master Zhang killed thousands of demons alone, but Celestial Master Zhang was still in high spirits. When he saw my master he even came over to say hello. Only then did I know that my master and Celestial Master Zhang were old friends. Celestial Master Zhang even asked my master for a few True Yang talismans, saying that he needed to disperse some of the evil blood qi on his body. What does that have to do with that kid? Li Ku asked, confused. It said that after killing demons, there will be evil blood qi left on one's body. It will either dissipate gradually with time or be burned by True Yang fire. When Celestial Master Zhang asked for the True Yang talisman, it also combusted on its own, Zhou Yinan said in a low voice. Zhou Yinan said in a low voice, at that time, Celestial Master Zhang also said that he killed too many demons in those days, and his body was actually contaminated with such a heavy blood aura that he didn't even need to activate the True Yang talisman, and it actually ignited. It's possible that the kid had just killed some demons and ghosts. After all, he's also a cultivator. It's not surprising that he killed a few demons, right? Li Ku said with slight hesitation. In that big incident, my master gave a lot of True Yang talismans. Basically, the stock that he had stored for decades was used up in that big incident. If others want to get True Yang talismans, they all need to activate them. Only Celestial Master Zhang doesn't need to activate them, Zhou Yinan said. Zhou Yinan said, at that time my master said that other people only have a little bit of evil blood qi, but Celestial Master Zhang's evil blood qi can directly scare away the most ferocious evil spirits and evil spirits. You mean, the evil blood qi on that kid surnamed Qin is comparable to that of Celestial Master Zhang? Probably even more, Zhou Yinan said. At the same time he secretly glanced at Qin Zhao, who was far behind them. All in all, that kid isn't the kind person we thought he was. We don't want to hurt anyone, but we have to be careful. Li Ku had been in business for many years and was also a smart person. He had basically seen all kinds of people. He even had contact with demons. He also secretly looked back at Qin Zhao. I can't tell what this brat is capable of. Behind them, Qin Zhao and Wang Hai were chatting happily. Anyway, they were all bragging. Wang Hai was also very supportive. In his opinion, Qin Zhao was just bragging. How could he be familiar with a Hollywood director? It was a piece of cake for him to be the main character in a Hollywood movie. Wang Hai's face was full of envy and joy. He kept saying that he wanted to rely on Qin Zhao and suck up to him. Regardless of what he was thinking, at least his expression and tone were very good. I invested in that kidnapping. To be honest, if you don't have any connections, you can't invest in Hollywood movies even if you have the money. Brother Qin, you're the best. When can you introduce director Steven to me? He's not free. He's shooting a new movie right now. It'll probably be released next year. Do you know what the limit of this credit card is? How much? I don't know either. Anyway, the bank said that there's no limit. Qin Zhao really enjoyed this situation. He even felt like he was bragging. But the other party kept praising him and didn't want to expose his bragging at all. This was the benefit of talking to adults. They were all fake. Chapter 2652. After entering the Han Wang Mountain, the group slowed down a bit. It was the middle of the night and this was a barren land. There was really nothing fun to do. There were also many mosquitoes. They couldn't chase them away fast enough. Only Qin Zhao wasn't disturbed by the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes couldn't wait to avoid him. However, the deeper they went into Han Wang Mountain, the stronger the cold air. Even mosquitoes couldn't move around in such an environment. At this moment, an extremely powerful aura approached them. Qin Zhao raised his eyebrows and stopped. What's wrong? I feel something coming. Qin Zhao pointed ahead seriously. It seems really strong. Huh? How do you know? Li Ku asked, somewhat doubtful. Brother Li, you don't know, but Brother Chen's perception spells are really good. He can even cover a place as big as the amusement park. Really? Li Ku raised an eyebrow. Zhou Yinan had been silent the whole time. He looked at Qin Zhao with a strange expression. Brother Chen's cultivation isn't weak. Don't look down on him. Wang Hai hadn't seen Qin Zhao fight, but he'd pulled Qin Zhao into the team. He naturally had to support him as much as he could. Soon, Qin Zhao realized that the powerful aura was actually hundreds of evil spirits. However, judging from their clothes, they were all evil spirits that had lived through the ages. They looked like palace maids in movies. They wore the same clothes, but their faces were ferocious and scary. Apart from Qin Zhao, everyone else was happy to see these evil spirits instead of being shocked. It's actually spirits and there's so many of them. What's that? Qin Zhao asked, looking at the three, confused. Spirits? Don't they exist overseas? Wang Hai asked, turning his head. No. At least I haven't heard of them. You know, I haven't been in the spiritual world for long. Although they are also a type of evil spirit, their spirit bodies have been soaked in the spirit spring, so their spirit bodies are also contaminated with the spirit chi of the spirit spring. Although they are fierce, they are excellent materials for refining tools. Some cultivators even directly extract their spirit bodies and extract the spirit liquid from them. That thing can even prolong one's life. Wang Hai paused and glanced at Qin Zhao. But an enhancer like you won't be able to deal with spiritual enemies. If I get enough, I'll give you a few. Thanks, Brother Wang. Qin Zhao did not refuse. At this time, Zhou Yinan and Li Ku couldn't wait any longer. Even though there were many of them, their individual strengths were barely passable. Perhaps it would be a little stronger than the average evil spirit, but only a little stronger. Whether it was Wang Hai, Zhou Yinan, or Li Ku, they all had some real skills. Against hundreds of spiritual Buddhas, he was still able to handle the situation with ease. To be honest, this scene was indeed much better than that of the foreign spiritualists. Take the supernatural organization for example. The supernatural organization before Qin Zhao became the president. At that time, the first batch of members had almost been wiped out several times when they surrounded an evil spirit community. In fact, the strength of spiritualists in North America was generally the same. As for the supernatural organization, they were the real antisocial ones. He believed that Wang Hai, Zhou Yinan, and Li Ku weren't ordinary people either. But they weren't the best either. Plus, he'd only been back for a day. He'd already met the three before him. This meant that the spiritualists in the country were all very strong. Wang Hai claimed to be unorthodox. But his methods weren't normal at all. He gathered mana in his palms and kept slapping out strange runes. They looked like the hieroglyphs of the Shang dynasty. He also muttered, bind, break, destroy, break. The shapes of the runes didn't match what he was chanting, but the effect was quite similar. Zhou Yinan was even more direct. He formed a seal with his hands and pointed at a group of spiritual Buddhas. Large amounts of black water shot out from between his palms. When the spiritual Buddhas came into contact with the black water, their bodies turned pitch black as if they'd been splashed with ink. He fell from the sky as if he was carrying a weight on his body. Li Ku didn't use any spells. Instead he took out a gourd. "Come into my gourd," Li Ku yelled. A strong suction force appeared at the mouth of the gourd, sucking the spiritual Buddhas into it. Qin Zhao watched the battle before him and exclaimed. He'd completely become an outsider. None of the spiritual Buddhas approached him. He just stood where he was like a spectator. Qin Zhao realized that the spiritual Buddhas were afraid of him. Even though he didn't do anything, the spiritual Buddhas still avoided his side. They seemed to have sensed something from him. But Qin Zhao didn't take it to heart. Someone had already sensed the smell of blood on him in the past. Zhou Yinan glanced at Qin Zhao. But he wasn't idle either. It was rare to see such a large number of spiritual Buddhas in 100 years. If he missed this chance, there might not be a next time. In just 20 minutes, the number of spiritual Buddhas was reduced by half. The remaining spiritual Buddhas seemed to be afraid too. They all scattered and fled. Wang Hai, Zhou Yinan, and Li Ku couldn't do anything to the escaping spiritual Buddhas. If they attacked first, the three would be happy to see it happen. To them, the spiritual Buddhas were just walking into a trap. It wouldn't take much effort to deal with them. But if the spiritual Buddhas wanted to escape, they could only watch and sigh. After all, there were too many spiritual Buddhas. They could also fly. This was the spiritual Buddha's only advantage. When everyone returned to Qin Zhao's side, they were all happy. It seemed that they had gained a lot this time. Li Ku patted his gourd. "Qin, what do you think of my gourd? There are more than 100 spiritual Buddhas in it." Li Ku's methods were extraordinary, but Zhou Yinan and Wang Hai weren't weak either. Wang Hai took out a blank scroll and threw the spiritual Buddhas with runes imprinted on them onto the scroll. Then they turned into pictures on the scroll. There were more than 100 spiritual Buddhas of different shapes and sizes. Zhou Yinan condensed the spiritual Buddhas with the black water into a small black ball and stuffed it into his pocket. He didn't make a sound, but Qin Zhao saw that he was the one who had gained the most. "I'm impressed," Qin Zhao replied, chuckling. "Qin, don't be discouraged. I'll give you a few later." Wang Hai patted Qin Zhao's shoulder, treating him like his little brother. "Brother Wang, these things aren't cheap on the market, right? You're my brother. Why bother? Actually, it's not impossible to find them on the market. It's just that there aren't many of them. One spiritual Buddha costs around 10 or 20,000 yuan. Chapter 2653. Qin Zhao more or less understood what Wang Hai meant. To put it bluntly, they'd caught so many spiritual Buddhas to exchange for cash. Wang Hai thought that Qin Zhao was rich, but he might not be as rich as he claimed. But he was definitely rich. He wanted to get some money from Qin Zhao directly. Li Ku and Zhou Yinan glanced at Wang Hai. Zhou Yinan opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. But Li Ku pulled Zhou Yinan subtly. He didn't let him speak. Wang Hai's price was too high. On the market, a spiritual Buddha would sell for 10,000 yuan at most. Wang Hai clearly knew that Qin Zhao didn't understand the market. Qin Zhao had already noticed Li Ku and Zhou Yinan's actions. But he didn't plan on turning against Wang Hai. "Then give me 10. I still don't know how to use them. Give me an account and I'll transfer 200,000 to you." Wang Hai was instantly overjoyed. He'd achieved his goal. But Wang Hai didn't know that Qin Zhao's impression of Wang Hai had decreased. "You guys wait here. I'll go scout ahead," Wang Hai said. Wang Hai said, "Those Ling Sha probably ran out from the ancient tomb. Maybe we can meet them up ahead." Li Ku, Zhou Yinan and Qin Zhao stayed where they were. "Brother Qin, Li Ku hesitated for a while, wondering if he should remind Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao found a rock and sat down. Smiling, he said, "Are the spiritual Buddhas that Brother Wang sold me too expensive?" "They're a bit expensive, but Wang Hai doesn't have any bad intentions. He's just greedy." No, it's not easy for everyone." "Ah." Qin Zhao waved his hand, smiling. "Brother Qin, what cultivation method do you practice?" Li Ku asked. "What I practice is a Taoist technique, but the path I take is of the strengthening system." "How's your cultivation?" Li Ku didn't hide his probing anymore. "It should be okay," Qin Zhao said casually. "You guys know that I spend most of my time abroad. The level of the foreign spiritual world is SOSO. There are experts but not many of them. With my cultivation, I don't have many opponents overseas. Then there should be many demons and ghosts abroad, right? How's his strength?" "Of course there are strong and weak people, but I'm an enhancer. To put it bluntly, I'm just fighting those things head on. The reason I'm still alive is because I'm stronger and faster than them." That's true." Li Ku nodded with a smile. Qin Zhao's answer was clearly perfunctory. He had completely changed his question. You've killed many demons abroad, right? Yes, quite a few. Qin Zhao nodded. That evil blood chi of yours can't be explained with just a few. Zhou Yinan abruptly interrupted. I just need to join a few more scarlet missions and kill a few more monsters, Qin Zhao said indifferently. Zhou Yinan was stunned. Of course he knew about the scarlet mission. He even looked up the scarlet missions, hoping that he might be lucky enough to find one that was easier to complete. After a few days of research, he realized that none of the scarlet missions were easy. Each scarlet mission was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Many of them were exterminating demon lairs in certain places. Zhou Yinan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He completely believed Qin Zhao. As for Qin Zhao's cultivation, it shouldn't be low. But he definitely wasn't at Zhang Tiany's level. So it could only be that he had participated in many scarlet missions. If he participated in enough scarlet missions and killed a few more monsters each time, it wouldn't be impossible to explain his evil blood chi. Zhou Yinan heaved a sigh of relief. Now that he thought about it, it made more sense. A while later Wang Hai came back. Wang Hai, how's it going up ahead? There seems to be another group of people here tonight. Wang Hai frowned. When I went over they noticed me too, but they didn't attack. I think they're also here for the Han King's tomb. More people? They look like people from Taoism. Which sect? Zhou Yinan asked sensitively. Zhou Yinan was a disciple of the Taihang Divination Five Elements sect, which was also a Taoist sect. However, they only cultivated Taoist spells and not Taoist scriptures. So, they could only be considered a Taoist sect, not a Taoist sect. In reality, Taoism and Taoism were two completely different concepts in Huaxia's current spiritual world. As for Taoism, it could be a Taoism, but a Taoism would forever be a Taoism. For example, Mount Longhu was a Taoist holy land and also a Taoist holy land. I'm afraid he's a Taoist priest from Mao Mountain. Mao Mountain? Li Ku and Zhou Yinan frowned. The Mao Mountain sect was one of the top Taoist sects in the Huaxia spirit world. Mao Mountain was also a Taoist holy land. However, Mao Mountain's Taoist sects and Taoist schools were separate. Mao Mountain also had a celestial master Zhang. However, this celestial master Zhang was not that celestial master Zhang. Mao Mountain's celestial master Zhang's real name was Zhang Ding, also known as Taoist Zhang. In addition to distinguishing Zhang Tianyi, it was also because the Maoshan sect had once been conferred a title by the imperial court during the Ming dynasty. The sect leader was conferred the title of the Great Light True Art Taoist of Cheongtian. The title of Tao Lord had been passed down to this day. Although this Tao Lord could be considered one of the most supreme figures of the other world, he was still a Tao Lord. But compared to Celestial Master Zhang of Longhu Mountain's Celestial Master sect, he was still a far cry. The spirit world only knew of Celestial Master Zhang, not Daojun Zhang. Of course, it would be an exaggeration to say that no one knew of him at all. However, Zhang Ding was far inferior to Zhang Tianyi in both cultivation and fame. That was true. Zhang Ding was one of the leading figures of the Huaxia Otherworld, and there were many others who were on the same level as him. Zhang Tianyi, on the other hand, was widely recognized as the most powerful person in the entire spirit world. The Maoshan sect had expressed a lot of dissatisfaction with the difference in status between the two. However, the world would not change just because of the Maoshan sect's dissatisfaction. As for Zhang Ding, he had never directly expressed his dissatisfaction with the Maoshan sect. His subordinates could complain, but he could not. That was because he knew that Zhang Tianyi would very likely confront him directly because of this. He also knew that Zhang Tianyi would definitely do something like that. Although they were of the same generation, the difference in power between the two was huge. That was why everyone thought that Zhang Ding was Zhang Tianyi's junior. No one knew what the Maoshan sect was doing there. However, that also cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. Although the spirit world was not like the cultivation world, where people killed and looted. But the conflict between factions was real. It was a matter of course for the strong to bully the weak no matter which era it was. The forces behind Li Ku, Zhou Yinan, and Wang Hai combined probably could not compare to the Maoshan sect. As such, they were extremely reluctant to have a conflict with the Maoshan sect. Chapter 2654. The four didn't walk for long before they saw 5 people dressed like Taoists standing in front of a cave. When they saw the 4, they immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. My friends, we are not enemies. You are not allowed to enter this place. Please, the leading Taoist with a goatee said arrogantly. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Everyone, this is not private territory, nor does it belong to any sect. You have no right to stop us. Li Ku said, trying to control his tone. The Maoshan sect is doing business here. Outsiders should leave. The goateed Taoist clearly didn't want to explain further. Isn't the Maoshan sect a bit too overbearing? Zhou was a nice guy. The Maoshan sect doesn't need to explain to outsiders, the goateed Taoist said nonchalantly. What if we insist on going in? Don't think that you can compete with the Maoshan sect just because you have some unorthodox skills. I advise you to be sensible and back off. Don't humiliate yourself. Fuck. Zhou was suddenly enraged. Everyone was stunned. Shouldn't Zhou be the most obedient? Moreover, Zhou wasn't just talking. His body was also acting. He immediately attacked the Taoist priests of the Maoshan sect. Filthy earth. A patch of black mud suddenly appeared under the Taoist's feet. How dare you, kid? The goateed Taoist yelled. The Taoists had thought that the people before them were just wandering wild cultivators. As long as they used the Maoshan sect's name, they could completely suppress them. They didn't expect to run into a lunatic. The filthy earth dared to attack them first. The filthy earth was quite vicious. In the past it would have been considered an evil spell. The black mud on the ground seemed to have a life of its own. It pulled the Taoists on it wildly. The goateed Taoist moved and broke free from the filthy earth. He then performed a seal with both hands. Duong, a wooden coffin fell from the sky. Then the green wooden coffin opened, and a ferocious-looking green-faced zombie walked out of it. The zombie breathed out foul air. Its eyes were black and its 10 fingers were as sharp and long as a beast's. The canine teeth in its mouth were also different from those of ordinary people. Although it was in human form, its body was abnormally tall and sturdy, exceeding 220 centimeters. And this green-faced zombie wasn't like the ones in Xiangjiang movies who were jumping around and wearing Qing dynasty official uniforms. He was dressed in tattered hemp garments and his steps were unsteady. His body was slightly arched forward and his arms hung low. Old Zhou, retreat. That's a green corpse. Li Ku hastily shouted. Although he did not understand why Zhou Yinan would attack the Taoist priest of the Maoshan sect. But looking at Zhou Yinan's expression, there was most likely some grudge between them. He and Zhou Yinan had known each other for more than 20 years. If they were to fight, he would naturally stand on Zhou Yinan's side. Zhou Yinan reacted quickly when he saw the green corpse. Summon the 5 Skandas, Grand Thunder. At this time, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and crashed onto the green-faced zombie's head. The huge body of the green-faced zombie collapsed with a loud rumble. Everyone couldn't help but look at Wang Hai. No one had expected Wang Hai to be so decisive. Wang Hai grinned. If we're going to fight, then there's no need to waste time. Stupid cow nose of Maoshan, I happen to have some grudges with you people that need to be settled. Everyone realized that Wang Hai also had a grudge with the Maoshan sect. No wonder he was so decisive. Seeing this, Li Ku no longer hesitated. He took off the treasure gourd from his back. Little Qin, this has nothing to do with you. You don't have to get involved. Qin Zhao smiled and stretched his body. We're all here together. Even if I say that it has nothing to do with me, they won't believe me. Since these people want to die, we don't need to hold back anymore. Let's attack with everything we have. Don't worry about casualties, the Taoist priest with a goatee said. There are 9 layers in the earth and 9 layers in the sky and 9 mysteries in the sky. The world is the guide and the great path is the spirit. It illuminates the heavenly path, gathers my 9 spirits and contains my 9 lives. The ground gradually cracked open and a bronze coffin rose from the ground. A huge zombie walked out of the bronze coffin. The zombie was almost 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in black hair, making it look like a savage. It carried a huge axe that was as big as a door. Zombie King. Everyone's expression changed drastically. They didn't expect the goateed Taoist to be so powerful that he could nurture a zombie king. Qin Zhao frowned. Qin Zhao frowned. The zombie king was very strong. Even spiritualists couldn't touch the aura of death on its body, let alone regular people. The other Taoist priests also summoned their coffins one after another. Green-faced or red-faced zombies walked out of the coffins one after another. Since you're so stubborn, don't blame us for killing you. The goateed Taoist snorted coldly. He pointed at the 4 and shouted, Go! Li Ku raised the treasure gourd and shouted at the zombie king, Take it! But the zombie king didn't move at all. Then it spat out a mouthful of murky air at Li Ku. The murky air carried a fishy smell as it whizzed toward Li Ku. Old Li, retreat. Zhou Yinan made a hand seal. A stone palm grabbed Li Ku and dragged him back. The zombie king's murky air was filthy water poison. Once hit, it was extremely difficult to expel. The poison could seal one's spiritual power. They needed help and might not succeed. Wang Hai and Li Ku made hand seals. Thunder spell, 5 essence true thunder. 5 bolts of lightning struck down from the sky. They all hit the zombie king's head. Moreover, each bolt of lightning was much more powerful. When the 5th bolt landed, there was already a huge pit where the zombie king was standing. But the zombie king still didn't move. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Such a powerful and terrifying thunder spell couldn't hurt the zombie king at all. How dare you embarrass yourself before me with such a small trick? Qin Zhao glanced at the goateed Taoist. His cultivation was clearly similar to Wang Hai's. But he could summon such a powerful zombie king to fight for him. On the other hand, Wang Hai was powerful, but a zombie king alone was enough to render them helpless. Brr. With a deafening roar, the zombie king finally moved. With a terrifying sense of oppression, the zombie king instantly appeared before the 3 of them. It raised its giant axe and slashed at Wang Hai. It's over. Wang Hai's face paled. The zombie king was too powerful. It was completely beyond their limits. Qin Zhao moved and suddenly appeared before Wang Hai. He reached out and accurately grabbed the handle of the zombie king's axe. Everyone stared at Qin Zhao in disbelief. A human, grabbing the axe of a corpse king that possessed the strength of 10,000 kilograms? Was there a mistake? Qin Zhao suddenly raised his leg and kicked the zombie king's abdomen, sending it flying more than 10 meters away. I'll deal with this big guy. I'll leave the rest to you. Jiuqian Divine Emperor. Chapter 2655. What great strength. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Usually, the most effective way to deal with a zombie king wasn't to fight it head-on with one's own body. Instead, it was a summoning spell to summon a creature with the same powerful body. Otherwise, it was a powerful attack spell that would hit the target. But Wang Hai, Li Ku, and Zhou Yinan didn't have this ability. They'd thought that they would most likely die in this battle. Unexpectedly, Qin Zhao, a bystander, suddenly intervened. He also displayed great strength in an instant. Qin Zhao grabbed the axe he'd snatched. This is pretty handy. The zombie king wasn't injured. After regaining its footing, it roared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao twisted his neck and stared at the zombie king. Brother Qin, be careful. Wang Hai's way of addressing Qin Zhao had changed from Little Qin to Brother Qin. I can't help with other things, Qin Zhao said coolly. But physical work is my specialty. The goateed Taoist was also surprised. This person clearly walked the path of strengthening the body. However, there was a limit to this kind of body strengthening technique. He didn't believe that someone could train their body to the point where they could fight a zombie king. The zombie king was refined and merged with his primordial spirit, so it was also a part of him. He naturally knew how terrifying the zombie king's combat ability was. It could even easily lift a 100-ton object. But just now, Qin Zhao had blocked it with his bare palms. He found it hard to accept. But he didn't think that his zombie king had lost. He felt that Qin Zhao had used some secret technique. He'd obtained extraordinary power in a short time. But this secret technique couldn't last for long. Go. Kill him. The zombie king roared and pounced at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao swung his axe and swung it 360 degrees. The axe landed heavily on the zombie king's shoulder. The corpse king staggered a few steps, but it was completely unharmed. What a tough body. Qin Zhao didn't use too much force. He was curious about the zombie king. How strong was the zombie king's strength and defense? The zombie king spread its arms and gave Qin Zhao a bear hug. Qin Zhao didn't plan on hugging a corpse. He lifted his body and somersaulted in midair to escape. The corpse king's arms snapped the tree behind Qin Zhao. Wang Hai, Zhou Yinan, and Li Ku broke out in cold sweat. The corpse king's terrifying power was undeniable. If that bear hug had landed, Qin Zhao's body would have been crushed into a pulp. As soon as Qin Zhao steadied himself, the zombie king pounced at him again. It swung its arm at his back. Be careful. Everyone shouted at the same time. Qin Zhao pulled the handle of the axe and swung it across, smashing it into the zombie king's face. The zombie king's jaw was smashed crooked, but the zombie king straightened its jaw by itself. Qin Zhao followed up with a windmill. The axe spun 3 times and landed heavily on the side of the zombie king. The undead king's huge body flew more than 30 meters before it was finally stopped by a tree with a diameter of at least 1 meter. Roar! The zombie king stood up again, still without any injuries. The zombie king actually turned around and hugged the trunk of the tree. In front of everyone's eyes, the tree trunk was actually broken by it. Next, the zombie king actually swung the trunk at Qin Zhao. Dragging the handle of the axe, Qin Zhao charged at the zombie king. The moment the trunk was about to hit Qin Zhao leaped up. Qin Zhao leaped up suddenly. The moment the tree branch missed, he swung the axe down heavily. Hiss! The axe split the zombie king's head in half. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The goateed Taoist suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell backward. Martial uncle. The Taoist priests hurriedly supported the goateed Taoist priest. Wang Hai, Zhou Yinan, and Li Ku were all dumbfounded. They didn't expect Qin Zhao's power to be so terrifying. Now, no one treated Qin Zhao as a bumpkin who had just returned from abroad. At least, no one dared to underestimate Qin Zhao's power anymore. Just then, two Taoists walked out of the Han King's tomb. One of them had a clean face and looked to be in his early 20s, but he had a head of white hair. He wore a black Taoist robe and held a sword in one hand. His eyebrows were like swords and he had an imposing appearance. Behind him was an old Taoist who was the complete opposite of the Taoist. He wore a blue and white Taoist robe and held a horsetail whisk in his hand. He looked like an immortal. "What's going on?" the young-looking Taoist scolded coldly. "Grandmaster, we don't know where those people came from. They attacked us without a word. I tried to stop them but they killed my own corpse." Everyone's expressions changed when they saw the two Taoists who came out from inside. Qin Zhao didn't know the two Taoists, but he knew the other three. Especially when Zhou Yinan looked at the young-looking Taoist priest, his eyes were bursting with monstrous fury. Zhang Ding. Everyone could even hear the sound of Zhou Yinan's teeth grinding. When Zhang Ding looked at Zhou Yinan, his gaze turned even colder. "Zhou Yinan, it's you." Zhou Yinan didn't act rashly this time. He knew who he was facing. Zhang Ding was a man of his word in the Huaxia's supernatural world. The number of people who could stand on equal footing with him could be counted on one hand. It was the same for his cultivation. Apart from those old monsters who lived in seclusion, there was definitely a place for him among the top people in the world. Compared to Zhang Ding, they couldn't even be considered bugs. Zhang Ding drew a rune in the air with his right hand and lightly touched the rune. The rune shot toward Zhou Yinan. Zhou Yinan couldn't resist and fell to the ground in the blink of an eye. "For the sake of your ancestors, I've already tolerated you many times, but you don't know what's good for you. It looks like I have to cripple your cultivation today, lest you use your magic to commit crimes." Pop! Suddenly a gust of wind brushed past Zhang Ding. Zhang Ding froze, then touched his cheek. There was a bloody mark on it. He looked at Qin Zhao in shock. "You, undo the spell on him," Qin Zhao said coolly. "Kid, you." Pop! Another black ball whizzed past Zhang Ding's side, the gust of wind cutting through his skin. The old Taoist standing next to Zhang Ding had a smile on his face. After Qin Zhao made his move, he took a step back. It was a show of his attitude that it had nothing to do with him. Zhang Ding's expression darkened. "Do you know what you're doing?" "I do, but do you know what you're facing?" Qin Zhao gestured with his right hand. Chapter 2656. Zhang Ding's cultivation was very high. However, he still hadn't reached the Shangqing realm. To Qin Zhao, this kind of opponent could be easily crushed. Wang Hai and Li Ku's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. There weren't many people in this world who dared to go against Zhang Ding. Zhang Ding was burning with anger. "You think you can really threaten me? You can try. Then I'll really have to give it a try today. Come, let me see what other abilities you have." Qin Zhao loosened his fingers. With a whoosh, a black ball shot out. But this time the black ball exploded 3 meters away from Zhang Ding. A loud sound rang out in the air. Zhang Ding stood in place, unmoving. "You don't know how to hold back after a successful sneak attack. You think you can beat me?" "Ignorant kid," Zhang Ding snorted. Wang Hai and Li Ku's expressions changed drastically. Was it too much? This time Zhang Ding formed a seal with both hands. In half a second he completed it. Then he raised his palms. 5 bronze coffins rose from the ground. Li Ku and Wang Hai's expressions changed when they saw the 2 coffins. The goateed Taoist bronze coffin was already difficult enough for them to handle. Even Qin Zhao had barely defeated the corpse king in the bronze coffin. Now that Zhang Ding had summoned 5 coffins at once, it was too much. But just then Qin Zhao suddenly charged forward and kicked one of the coffins away. The bronze coffin flew directly at Zhang Ding. Zhang Ding stared at the coffin in shock. He almost couldn't react. Fortunately, the Taoist behind him pulled him over, allowing him to avoid the coffin. "Zhang Daojun, be careful," the Taoist said with a chuckle. At the same time he looked at Qin Zhao. The Taoist realized that Qin Zhao was looking at him with narrowed eyes. The Taoist hurriedly waved his hand. "Kid, I'm not familiar with Zhang Daojun. If you want to cause trouble, go to him. Zhang Ding was seething with anger. Was it embarrassing to know him? If it was someone else, Zhang Ding would have captured them and turned them into a poisonous corpse. But the Taoist beside him wasn't easy to deal with. No matter how unhappy Zhang Ding was, he couldn't do anything. Thank you, Immortal Wu Su. You're welcome, hee. Taoist Master Wu Su smiled and stepped back. But this is my limit. I don't want to fight with that kid. What happens next is up to you. There's no need for you to do anything. It's just an accident. Zhang Ding looked at Qin Zhao with a sinister look in his eyes. At this time, the other 4 bronze coffins had already been opened. 4 even more terrifying corpse kings walked out of the bronze coffins. These 4 corpse kings were respectively holding a giant sword, a giant blade, a spear and a pair of scissors. They were like ancient generals or swordsmen. In fact, they were indeed ancient generals and swordsmen when they were alive. Qin Zhao's attention wasn't on the 4 corpse kings. Instead, her gaze lingered on the old Taoist. He couldn't see through the old Taoist cultivation. Even his small world was unable to penetrate the protective barrier around the old Taoist. The old Taoist seemed to have sensed Qin Zhao's gaze. He turned his head and smiled at Qin Zhao. On the other hand, Li Ku and Wang Hai were extremely nervous. They didn't believe Qin Zhao could take on 4 corpse kings at the same time. Just then the 4 corpse kings attacked Qin Zhao at the same time. But this time Qin Zhao didn't move. He just stood where he was. The 4 corpse kings flew backward without any warning. It was as if they'd been hit by an invisible force. Li Ku and Wang Hai were dumbfounded. What happened? Why did the 4 corpse kings fly backward without any warning? The old Taoist lifted his eyelids. When he looked at Qin Zhao, a strange light flashed in his eyes. Zhang Ding's pupils constricted. Just then Qin Zhao hooked his finger. Zhang Ding was pulled in front of him. Qin Zhao strangled Zhang Ding with one hand. Undo my friend's spell. What if I don't? Do you dare kill me? Zhang Ding couldn't back down now. To him, being in the hands of a junior was already a great humiliation. But with his status, he was confident that Qin Zhao wouldn't dare kill him. If he knew Qin Zhao better, perhaps he wouldn't be so confident. After all, Qin Zhao didn't know what kind of trouble killing him would bring. With a smile on his face, Qin Zhao increased the strength of his hand. Zhang Ding's mouth gaped open. His face was flushed with blood and his eyes were about to pop out. Qin Zhao's strength was still increasing. Just then the old Taoist suddenly laughed. Ah, I heard that Celestial Master Zhang invited a top expert from abroad. That must be you, my friend. When everyone heard that Qin Zhao was related to Zhang Tianyi, their expressions couldn't help but change. To be called a top expert by Zhang Tianyi, one's strength was undeniable. I didn't believe it at first. That old man likes to brag, but now it seems that you really are a top expert. I wasn't invited back by him. I just came back to play for a few days. I knew that old man wouldn't find me for anything good. Then do you know why Celestial Master Zhang invited you back? I don't know and I'm not interested. Qin Zhao had wanted to go to Dragon Tiger Mountain to play for a few days. Now it seemed that going there would be big trouble. Forget it. I'm suddenly tired of playing. I'm going home. A peerless demon king will appear in the Qinling Mountains, and I'm afraid the scale will be even greater than the one 20 years ago. If we can't stop the peerless demon king, then putting aside the problem of the impact, nearly 1 million people will suffer, and the number of people who will die will be incalculable. Little friend, do you have the heart to let your report suffer? Qin Zhao's expression twisted. Old Zhang has his ways. Plus, there's still a master like you in the country. My cultivation isn't as good as Celestial Master Zhang or you. Plus, Celestial Master Zhang and I are different from you. You reached your current level purely with your combat ability. In terms of pure combat ability, I'm afraid Celestial Master Zhang and I together are no match for you. Did old man Zhang bring me back this time to make me his fighter? I want to defend Celestial Master Zhang, but this is the reality. The old Taoist glanced at Zhang Ding, who was about to be strangled by Qin Zhao. Can you let Zhang Daojun go? He didn't agree to my request. Your friend's spell isn't weak, but I can undo it. As for Zhang Daojun, he's still useful. This was undoubtedly the most hurtful thing to Zhang Ding. Was he able to live because he was still useful? Chapter 2657. Li Ku and Wang Hai were completely confused by the conversation. This Qin guy knew Celestial Master Zhang? From his tone, the two seemed to be very close. Also, this kid was called back to deal with a powerful demon that was about to be born? The fuse of the legendary event? Li Ku and Wang Hai couldn't help but gulp. They felt like they'd heard something terrible. The old Taoist seemed to have noticed their thoughts. He casually glanced at the two of them. Don't say another word after you get out of here. Otherwise you two won't be able to escape. Both of them shuddered. The old Taoist had spoken in a very gentle tone. However, there was a trace of bone-chilling coldness in his eyes. Qin Zhao let go of Zhang Ding. Zhang Ding's face turned red and white. His limbs felt uneasy. His eyes flashed. He seemed to be hesitating about whether he should take this opportunity to attack Qin Zhao. Daojun Zhang, don't make a mistake, the old Taoist suddenly said with a snort. The old man seemed to be able to read people's minds. Zhang Ding sneaked a glance at the old Taoist and put his thoughts away embarrassed. Go and undo the spirit vessel seal on that person. Spiritual Master Wushu, this person and his ancestor have a grudge against me. I don't care what grudge you have with him, but I know that if you don't undo it, you won't be able to get through this. The old Taoist glanced at Qin Zhao. Zhang Daojun, this is a person who once beat up a peerless great demon to the point that he couldn't even take care of himself. In terms of means, you can't beat him. Moreover, he doesn't hang around in the country, so your influence is useless against him. If you push him too far, he might really kill your entire family. Whatever, Zhang Ding said. As long as this kid agrees not to be an enemy of the Maoshan sect, I won't make things difficult for him. I won't agree on his behalf, Qin Zhao said coolly. The old Taoist chuckled. Daojun Zhang, now is not the time for you to ask for conditions. You can't even protect yourself. There's no point in talking about conditions. Qin Zhao didn't know what kind of grudge Zhou Yinan had with Zhang Ding. Perhaps he would agree on his side. Zhou Yinan would turn against him. In that case he would be in a terrible situation. Zhang Ding's eyes flashed. He unwillingly removed the spell on Zhou Yinan. Zhou Yinan woke up in a daze. Then he looked at the strange scene in a daze. He knew what kind of person Zhang Ding was. The only reason why he didn't kill him when he saw him was because he was suddenly kind. How could he suddenly undo the spell? Also, why was everyone's expression so strange? What had happened while he was under the spell? Zhang Ding's face was as ugly as if he had eaten shit. Looking at the three people on his side, they all had different expressions on their faces. Especially Wang Hai and Li Ku, they kept avoiding his gaze. What the hell happened? Let's go. Zhang Ding was the first to leave. He didn't even look back as he left in a carefree manner. However, in Li Ku and Wang Hai's eyes, there was a hint of embarrassment behind his calm demeanor. One of the most powerful beings in the Huaxia spirit world had been beaten by a nobody. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. Brothers, what exactly is going on? Zhou Yinan asked. No one answered Zhou Yinan's question. Since Qin Zhao didn't explain, Li Ku and Wang Hai didn't dare to talk about what had happened. After all, they had just been warned by Taoist Wushu. Let's talk about you first, Qin Zhao said. What kind of grudge do you have with that Zhang Daojun? Zhou Yinan lowered his head, not really willing to speak. Old Zhou, we're all on the same side. There's no need to be so secretive. Yeah, old Zhou, we went through thick and thin just now, Wang Hai said. Also, I won't hide it from you. I also have some grudges with the Maoshan sect. Everyone's eyes focused on Wang Hai. Wang Hai continued, I told you that my master was an old beggar. I was the one who sent him off in the end. Everyone nodded. Qin Zhao had only met Wang Hai today, but he did mention this to Wang Hai. A few years ago, I went to his grave and found that the old beggar's grave was empty. After investigating, I found that a few days after the old beggar was buried, people from the Maoshan sect wandered around the area. The Maoshan sect is best at refining corpses. Moreover, the old beggar was not weak when he was alive. I don't even need to think to know what they're going to do with the old beggar's body. Did this really need to be said out loud? Of course it was for refining corpses. The higher the cultivation of a cultivator, the more powerful the zombies they could refine. Moreover, some cultivators' corpses could even be refined into certain spells. Everyone was in the industry, so there was no need for evidence. As long as there was a suspicion, then it was very likely. Moreover, the Maoshan sect had a history of doing such things. Their viciousness was abhorrent in the Huaxia spiritual world. Unfortunately, the Maoshan sect was too powerful. Lone cultivators and savages couldn't beat them at all. Moreover, they had political backgrounds and influence. This made them somewhat unscrupulous in their actions. They were also smart enough not to touch the corpses of important figures or people with powerful backgrounds. Forget it. Since you guys want to know, I'll tell you about me and the Maoshan sect. Zhou Yinan sighed and made up his mind. I'm a descendant of the Mai sect, Zhou Yinan said. Everyone was confused. Only Qin Zhao looked at Zhou Yinan with a meaningful look. That was because the Qingyi sect was derived from the Mai sect. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a branch of the Mai sect. Qin Zhao also learned from Li Qing that the Mai sect was actually a branch of the Maoshan sect. This meant that Qin Zhao and the Maoshan sect actually had a connection. It was just that the connection was a little distant. That was all Qin Zhao knew. The Maoshan sect is divided into 3 sects: the White Cloak sect, the Mai sect, and the Black Cloak sect, Zhou Yinan explained. The White Cloak sect can observe the wind and water, detect the veins of dragons, and search for the secrets of heaven. The Mai sect specializes in exorcising ghosts and demons and also protects the sect. They are the Maoshan sect's protectors. As for the Black Cloak sect, they raise ghosts and refine corpses, reverse life and death, and invert human relationships. The Maoshan sect has always been led by the White Cloak sect, but in recent years there have been many scammers using the Maoshan sect's name in the Jianghu. This caused the Maoshan sect's reputation to plummet, so the White Cloak sect retreated and went into seclusion. That's how the conflict between the Black Cloak sect and the Mai sect started. My grandfather Zhou Zhangyin was the leader of the Mai sect back then. He was also a protector of the Maoshan sect. Is it the famous Mai Divine Lord from 30 years ago? Wang Hai asked. I didn't expect someone to know my grandfather's name. I thank you on his behalf. Chapter 2658. Qin Zhao looked at Zhou Yinan. In the past, Qin Zhao only knew about the Mai sect. He didn't know that there were also the White and Black Cloak sects. My grandfather led the Marobe sect and Zhang Ding's master, the Black Robe sect, in a heated argument. Originally, it was a fight between fellow sect members, and both sides restrained themselves, not going overboard. But Zhang Ding broke the rules and slandered my grandfather, saying that he had stolen the Maoshan treasure, the Tiangang demon-suppressing sword. Then they tried to judge my grandfather, and without any evidence and just based on Zhang Ding's words, they judged my grandfather guilty. My grandfather's cultivation was crippled according to Maoshan sect rules, and he passed away a month after his cultivation was crippled. My family was also expelled from Maoshan. Didn't your grandfather fight back? Since he was framed, I don't think he would obediently accept the verdict or even punishment. Qin Zhao's thoughts were too presumptuous. He felt that if he was faced with such a thing, he definitely wouldn't obediently accept the verdict. At that time, they claimed that they would investigate the matter thoroughly, but before that, they had to first seal my grandfather's cultivation. At that time, my grandfather cared about us juniors, so he did not plan to resist. He felt that since he did not do it, he would naturally be able to investigate it thoroughly. But then they found a secret compartment in his room, and in the secret compartment they found the Tiangang demon suppressing sword. At that time, my grandfather could no longer explain himself. This was Zhou Yinan's one-sided story, but Qin Zhao was more willing to believe him. Along the way, whenever Zhou Yinan mentioned this, his face would be filled with hatred and unwillingness. Oh, do you know about the Qingyi sect? Qin Zhao asked. Zhou Yinan froze and turned to Qin Zhao. Why did you mention it? What sect is this Qingyi sect? Li Ku and Wang Hai had never heard of the Qingyi sect. It's a branch of the Mai sect, Zhou Yinan explained simply. How come I've never heard of it? Zhou Yinan glanced at Qin Zhao. Brother Qin, where did you hear about it? When I was overseas, I met a friend. She called herself a descendant of the Qingyi sect, Qin Zhao said calmly. Abroad? Zhou Yinan's brows furrowed vaguely. Is that person okay? When I met her, she wasn't doing well. What about now? She's doing fine now. She accepted a foreign disciple and plans to let him inherit her mantle. Zhou Yinan's complexion improved a little. Can you give me her contact number? Sorry, I don't have her contact number. Qin Zhao shook his head with a smile. I'm not that close to her. Sigh. Zhou Yinan sighed. Qin Zhao had Li Qing's contact number. But before he could figure out their relationship, Qin Zhao wouldn't give Li Qing's contact information to someone else. Zhou Yinan was obviously hiding something from him. This was why Qin Zhao wouldn't give out his contact information so easily. He planned to ask Li Qing first. After returning to the city, everyone went their separate ways. However, as soon as Qin Zhao returned to the hotel and entered the lobby, he heard screams behind him. Brother Qin. Qin Zhao didn't expect Zhou Yinan to follow him here. Brother Zhou, what's up? Brother Qin, I want to ask you something. Is it about Qingyi sect? I would like to ask, is the successor of Qingyi sect surnamed Li? Yes. Qin Zhao nodded. You really don't have her contact number? No. Brother Chin, you don't know my relationship with her, right? I'm all ears. She's my aunt. Qin Zhao couldn't help but stare at Zhou Yinan, trying to figure out if he was telling the truth. Unfortunately, Qin Zhao wasn't good enough. He couldn't tell if Zhou Yinan was telling the truth either. Even if it was true, Qin Zhao wouldn't give his contact number to Zhou Yinan easily. Brother Qin, you're close to my aunt, right? We just know each other, Qin Zhao said calmly. Is that so? When I first saw you, I felt that you were close. I didn't think too much about it, but now that I think about it, it's because you cultivate Qingyi Sect's Qingyi technique, right? Qin Zhao fell silent. He didn't know if Zhou Yinan was related to Li Qing. Even if he was really Li Qing's nephew, he wasn't sure if it was a good relationship. My Linyi sect cultivates the Linyi divine technique, which complements Qingyi Sect's Qingyi technique. Qin Zhao sensed carefully. There was a faint aura on Zhou Yinan that seemed to be connected to him. Of course, even so, Qin Zhao still had the same thought. He couldn't prove that he had no ill intentions with Li Qing. Qin Zhao first contacted Li Qing, then decided if he should give Li Qing's contact number to Zhou Yinan. I understand your concern, Brother Qin, but I really need my aunt's contact number. Brother Qin, you're my aunt's successor, right? Qin Zhao didn't deny it. If he had to clarify their relationship, he had benefited from Li Qing. Therefore, Qin Zhao wouldn't deny that he was Li Qing's successor. So you and I aren't outsiders. Why did Sister Li go abroad? Her children and daughter-in-law had all gone abroad at the time, and the situation in the country was not very good at the time. That was why she chose to go abroad. Fortunately, she went abroad and avoided some things in the country, Zhou Yinan said. The people of the Maoshan sect were actually looking for her at the time. Looking for her? What? The techniques of the Linyi sect, the White Cloak sect and the Black Cloak sect are all incomplete. Only the Qingyi sect's needle thread connecting can make up for it. The Qingyi sect isn't just a branch of the Linyi sect, right? After all, the spells of one branch can't make up for the techniques of the three main sections. You know about the Qingyi sect, but do you know about Shangliu Qingyi? I've heard of her. Qin Zhao nodded. He'd read the records of the Qingyi sect before. It was founded by Shangliu Qingyi. Shangliu Qingyi was also from the Linyi sect. Secondly, Shangliu Qingyi's personal life. That was all Qin Zhao knew. In reality, Shangliu Qingyi was the leader of the Linyi sect at the end of the Tang dynasty. The situation back then was very similar to now. The Linyi sect and the White Cloak sect were at a stalemate for the position of the Maoshan sect's leader. In the end, the White Cloak sect won, and Shangliu Qingyi left the Maoshan sect in anger. Shangliu Qingyi said something before he left the Maoshan sect. I can't decide the current leader, so I'll decide the future leaders of the Maoshan sect. Then he founded the Qingyi sect. The victorious Maoshan sect leader didn't think much of it, but he soon realized that Shangliu Qingyi's words came true. Shangliu Qingyi took away the most important technique of the Linyi sect, which is the foundation of the three sects of the Maoshan sect. It's also the Qingyi sect's spell, needle thread connecting. In the following 1,000 years, there were 32 Maoshan sect leaders. Every time they took over, they had to ask the successor of the Qingyi sect to complete the technique. In other words, without the approval of the Qingyi sect leader, the Maoshan sect leader wouldn't be able to learn the complete technique. Wait, didn't any of the leaders pass down the complete technique? Chapter 2659. Do you know why there's a need to use the needle thread to complete it? It's not the technique itself, but the flaws of the cultivator's body. The technique can be passed down, but the body can't, Zhou Yinan explained. Zhou Yinan explained, Shangliu Qingyi fused the complete cultivation method into the needle threading technique, and in order to prevent the cultivation methods and spells of Qingyi sect from being leaked, Shangliu Qingyi set down a rule that only one generation of Qingyi sect can pass it down. Hearing Zhou Yinan's words, Qin Zhao frowned. In other words, Zhou Yinan wanted to find Li Qing to complete the flaws in his technique? Brother Qin, since you can learn the Qingyi sect spells, you must have a close relationship with my aunt, so please give me her contact. Qin Zhao looked at Zhou Yinan. I have her contact, but how do I know you're telling the truth? Since he'd already said this, Qin Zhao didn't plan on hiding anymore. If he said he didn't have her contact, Zhou Yinan wouldn't let it go. I'm telling the truth. It's not up to me to give you her contact. I need to ask her. If she agrees, I'll give you her contact. If she doesn't, I can only say sorry. Zhou Yinan looked troubled. He wanted to say something but stopped. Sorry, I need to go back to my room to rest. I'll let you know if there's any news. Qin Zhao had already asked him to leave, so Zhou Yinan could only leave awkwardly. After leaving the hotel, Zhou Yinan took out his phone. Li is Wang with you? Yes, we're at my restaurant on Horizontal Street. Are you coming over? Yes, I'll go over now. Zhou Yinan hurried to the restaurant the two were at. The restaurant wasn't small. It was Li Ku's private property. With Li Ku's skills, the restaurant was still doing well even at 2 in the morning. Zhou Yinan pushed open the door and saw Li Ku and Wang Hai drinking. Seeing Zhou Yinan, Li Ku poured him a glass of wine. Zhou, sit. Have a glass. This is good wine. Zhou Yinan took the glass, tilted his head back and drank all the liquor in the glass. Oh, this is really good wine. This bottle of wine should be at least 2,000 yuan, right? The refined Wuliangye, the purchase price is 3,800 per bottle. If you put it on the counter of my restaurant, the price is 4,888. Take 2 bottles home. Zhou Yinan licked his lips. Li Ku looked at Zhou Yinan. He had known Zhou Yinan for the longest time. Although there was a huge difference in their wealth, they were both insiders. Therefore they had a lot of common topics and the two of them helped each other many times. Although Zhou Yinan had concealed his background. But who didn't have a little secret? Where did you go just now? Li Ku had invited Zhou Yinan and Wang Hai for a drink after they left the mountain, but Zhou Yinan said that he had something to take care of. In just a little more than an hour, he had already finished his business. Old Li, old Wang, how about doing me a favor? What kind of help? If you want money or people, just say the word. Li Ku's answer was filled with the air of a gangster, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Zhou Yinan looked at Wang Hai. Old Wang, are you familiar with that Chin kid? Oh, I guess so. We don't have a deep relationship. That's good, that's good. Wait. Old Zhou, what do you mean? Li Ku asked. I have some history with him. I want you guys to help me take down that kid together. How can we do that? Li Ku immediately stood up and said agitatedly. Old Li, what's wrong with you? Do you have to be so agitated? Zhou Yinan looked at Li Ku in surprise. He didn't understand why Li Ku was so agitated. Is that kid your illegitimate son? Don't talk nonsense. We don't have any history with him. Why would we attack him? It's not moral. I won't do anything to him. I just want to know some information from him. That won't work either. What? How many years of friendship can't compare to that kid? Li Ku and Wang Hai looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Do you remember why Maoshan Sec's Zhang Ding had such a strange expression and left unwillingly? Why? He was forced to leave by that Chin guy. Li Ku smiled bitterly. Also, he didn't want to reveal his cultivation. It was only because you were hit by Zhang Ding's spell that he had to reveal his cultivation. He suppressed Zhang Ding with his own strength and couldn't fight back. In the end, he had to be persuaded by another old Taoist to remove the spell on you. What you're doing right now is the equivalent of biting the hand that fed you. Also, even if we were willing to help, the three of us together might not be able to defeat him. Zhou Yinan's face turned green and red when he heard Li Ku and Wang Hai's words. I have my own difficulties too. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I can't help you with this, Li Ku said. He was loyal, but he didn't say that he would sacrifice his life for Qin Zhao. He was already being extremely benevolent by explaining this matter clearly. If South Africa wanted to die on Monday, there was nothing he could do. But he wouldn't go to his own death by fighting Qin Zhao to the death. He didn't think he had the right to do so. Wang Hai had the same thought. His relationship with Zhou Yinan was just average. Therefore he couldn't help Zhou Yinan fight that fiend. He had heard from the old Taoist that Qin Zhao wasn't just friends with Celestial Master Zhang. Even Celestial Master Zhang acknowledged Qin Zhao's strength. He had even invited Qin Zhao from abroad to help him fight against the unborn demon king. After talking with Li Ku, he realized that Qin Zhao's murderous aura was very strong. He wasn't a good person. It would be fine if Wang Hai could kill Qin Zhao in one move. But if he couldn't, Qin Zhao would definitely counterattack with lightning speed. Wang Hai didn't think that his small body could beat Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao was someone who had pressed the famous Zhang Daojun to the ground. Zhang Daojun's cultivation was also very famous in the Huaxia spiritual world. Therefore Wang Hai felt that he couldn't provoke Qin Zhao. Old Zhou, let's end this here. We'll pretend we never heard of this. If you want to know something from that Qin, then talk to him nicely. He might not reject you, but if we use force, I'm afraid this path won't work. Even if we help, we'll just be sending ourselves to our deaths. That Qin's strength is tyrannical. Even Zhang Ding isn't his match, so how can the three of us defeat him? Wang Hai said. Old Zhou, let's stop here. He was trying to persuade Zhou Yinan, but Zhou Yinan didn't seem to listen. He was a bit hot-headed. In the end, you guys just don't want to help me. Whatever, if you don't want to help, then don't. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.